o'clock local here. Oh, you had something to say. I'll wait here a minute till we get a body or two on a watch. Nobody coming. Man, I can hear that water in my air conditioner. Thought I dumped all that out. Well, I'll have to dump it out on my next stop. Ooh. Working our way back to the interstate. Working on the old temperature gauge to join in. Why it's running me south, but it's running me south. Only 6 miles to my next turn. That guy. Here we go. Getting back on. Ready. It is Sunday morning. Have 2 people. I'll get you started. I had 2 people and they disappeared. Never mind. Okay, man, you're gonna have to go faster than this. There we go. All right, I got one. I'll go with one. Spent the night in Morgantown, West Virginia, and they called me late with a night delivery for tonight coming up, and I am repositioning to McConnell, Ohio, a little over 100 miles away, and they got me a super heavy load. It's going to like challenge my payload capacity of my van here. You know, I like driving on weekends because there's a lot less traffic out here, which makes it nicer. I mean, look, we're on our own here. And it's a leisurely pickup. Apparently, I'm supposed to be there at 5 o'clock, which, okay. I'll get there a little earlier than that. But Morgantown, West Virginia, which is actually a nice area, and heading to McConnell, Ohio. This spent the night in this area. I'm not real familiar with West Virginia, and yesterday afternoon, sitting in the shade, enjoying, just sitting there in nice weather. And then in the afternoon, it started getting humid, like scrape your eyeballs off humid, and I sweat through my clothes. It was horrible. Set up my air conditioner last night in the van, and as the night wore on, the air conditioner was having a hard time overtaking humidity. Ugh. So I got out, and it was like you're wearing the air. It was really weird. I didn't know it got that humid in this part of the country. So for everybody that's jumped in, I just left the pilot in Morgantown, West Virginia, repositioning to McConnell, Ohio. They're giving me a payload that's gonna be right at the edge of the capacity of my van, and we're going to be taking that up to Marysville, Michigan, which is north of Detroit. Going to go through Detroit. It's supposed to be due at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the advantage of that is that's telling me it's a 24-hour operation, and I can probably get there early. And by no later than Thursday, I have to be by the family farm in western New York. So this is getting me pretty close to the area, and there's a lot of cargo for some reason, Michigan to Cleveland. For some reason, there is a dump truck load of cargo that goes that route, and I'm hoping to grab one of those. By the way, we are not supposed to. So I'm in neutral right now, and I'm coasting. Helps your gas mileage. So we are doing a lazy reposition. I spent the last day and a half, 2 nights, staying in this pilot, and I was parked next to another expediter. His name was Jeff, and we got to talking quite a bit. And Jeff's an interesting character, very friendly. And after talking, he's going to be doing a YouTube thing here in the near future. And once he gets rolling, he just started, but once he gets rolling, I will give you his link. Real interesting guy, and I think he'll enjoy talking with him. On a side note, you don't want to eat truck stop food all the time. Not only is it not the healthiest food, but it's also expensive. They really get you on the prices. And I was looking for food last night, and I used the Upside app, which I've talked about in the past. And there wasn't anything within a reasonable distance where I could use it, so I didn't go, and I didn't want to drive off. And there were no restaurants close by, so I actually used Uber Eats for the first time in 1,000 years. And the Uber Eats was actually a pretty good deal because they said if you spend X amount of dollars, we'll give you this huge discount. And they did. So I got to keep my parking spot. I got to keep everything was set up. The van was all spread out. I was good to go. So having food delivered, and you have to put into the notes that I'm at a truck stop and I'm next to a van and I'm sitting in a chair and it's got this name on the side. So you got to kind of let them know what you're doing. So I thought, okay, that was a weird way of doing things. I just put out a video, my usual morning joke video, and what I said was, "You're right where you're supposed to be in life, mainly because you make bad choices, but such is life." While the two of us were sitting there yesterday, a woman pulled up, and we were just facing in her direction. She was dressed for the office, and she popped the hood on her car, and she had her phone in her hand. And she was looking under the hood of her car, and she pulled the dipstick halfway out. And she was just standing there holding the dipstick, looking at her phone. I said, okay, this isn't a good sign. So I hopped up, and I grabbed a rag out of my van, and I walked over to her, and I said, what's it telling you? And she goes, oh, I got a check engine light came on with the oil pressure. So I pulled, I can't read that word, but hi. I'm sorry, I can't translate that. I put the dipstick and pulled it out, the dipstick for the engine oil, and there was nothing on it. Not high, not low, nothing on her dipstick. And I went, I don't think I've ever seen that. And I said, when's the last time you had an oil change? And she went and read her windshield, and she said 4,000 miles ago, and I'm wondering if the oil plug fell out. So I look under the car, there's no drips or anything. She had a quart, and I said, let me have that, and I put the quart in, and then I checked the oil, and the oil level just touched the bottom of the very base of the stick. I'm talking like a 16th of an inch. And I went, that's not good. And then I looked back under the car. I said, if there's no oil plug, it's going to leak everywhere. Well, there's no leak. So I said, you're going to need some more oil. She went in about 2 more quarts and came out. And I ended up adding a total of 2 more. So I had to put 3 quarts of oil in her car to get it to show in the normal range. And you got to go down a process of elimination of how would you have no oil in your car and the car's still running. So either it leaked out the bottom, it leaked out the engine, which means it would be sprayed everywhere and or dripping, or it went down the exhaust pipe. So I walked around behind the car and I showed her, you stick your finger up the exhaust pipe, and if it's black carbon, that's normal. If it's oily, that's where you're oil. Well, it was black carbon. I have no idea why there's no oil in your car unless they didn't put it in. But I told her to take it to a garage on her way to work, call in sick, call in late, go drop, go to an oil change place and say, this is what happened, and let them look and see if there's something going on underneath the car, because I can't get under it. She drove off, and I don't know what happened. Made me feel good to be able to do that, but I don't think in my entire life I pulled a dipstick out and there'd been nothing on it. Nothing. That was shocking. But that's how the day went. Like I said, my nephew got married yesterday, and they're off on their honeymoon. So we're gonna go to the farm now that they're gone. I pick up the wife on Friday. I pick her up at the Pittsburgh airport. Then we're gonna go to the farm and hang out. So I got a couple of days up here to work, and then I'll be over in that park anymore. Uh, Saturday morning delivery, I picked up the transmission. It said Dodge transmission. And, I delivered it to an address that it wasn't quite precise, and I got there and I was early, and I'm looking around in the dark, and just not getting that warm fuzzy feeling, it's like I don't think this is the right place. So I called dispatch and I said, this isn't looking right. There's some vehicles, some big trucks here, but this doesn't give me the indication of a business or there's an operation going on here. So she checked the address. Said, no, that's right, the right place. So when you're navigating to a location in your van, I run two GPSs. And the main one I use for going down the road is a satellite base, the old school. It sits on the dash and it uses sound totally separate from the phone. And I use that, so I'm playing with my phone, like doing this, for instance. But I also run Waze when I get close. And you compare, and sometimes they don't agree. So you need to identify which one of your GPSs you're going to believe when you get close. And I think Waze, because it updates, is the one I upload. That might like this way. Is the one I'm a little more apt to pay attention to. And I guess that worked. And they both were kind of telling me the same thing. I was there, but I wasn't feeling it. So then I did an overhead view of the area on Google Earth, and I saw going to the north, there was something that looked a lot more industrial. So I repositioned over there, and it was looking better, but it still didn't have the warm, fuzzy feeling. And while I was there, it was a construction site, but it didn't look like anybody had been working on it recently. And there were some cats there. They saw me, and they ran for their life until I shook the cat food container, and then, of course, they came running over. They're my best friends. So I fed those two cats. And a guy pulled up, and I said, hey, I'm looking for these. Oh, no, it's down the road. It was like 8/10 of a mile away. So two totally separate GPS systems couldn't find the address. And it was an asphalt company that was kind of hidden in the woods. And I have a Nintendo Switch too. Cool. I don't know. I'm not a gamer. That doesn't translate. And these guys do asphalt paving, and they have that machine that you've ever seen them doing construction sites. They lay it on the road. It moves really, really slow, and it lays down the asphalt. And it packs it down, and it does all that garbage. And it rides on a lowboy trailer. And they had the truck, and they were supposed to leave Friday to go to some big job, and the transmission fell out of the truck as soon as they put it in gear. And that's why it was an expedited load. They can't wait, a week to get the part. They need that transmission quick, fast, and now. So that's why I delivered it. And they were literally taking it off the truck and breaking the crate open because they were going to install it right there in the yard, which that's some pretty impressive mechanical skills to be able to do that in the field, but they really didn't have a choice. We're coasting down. Oh, it's in a Mexico place. Airport. That's cool. And so now we're going to McConnell's, Ohio. No idea what's going on there. We're going to find out the hard way. And there's a joke I used to say that if you're out here and you don't have a load, you can cue the cargo gods to get you a load by getting busy doing something. If you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're ready to go, they're not going to call you. But if you open your van up and spread out, get your chair out, go put your clothes in the laundry, and get it the tub full of water, and you're right in the middle of cleaning, I guarantee you the cargo gods will look down upon you and go, oh, he's comfortable, make him move. And all of a sudden, the phone will ring off the hook, and they want you somewhere 50 miles away 9 minutes ago, or something like that. Mr. John, I can't read that morning. Martin. Hey, how you doing, Mr. John? We're doing a pickup this afternoon for a night run. I'm out of Morgantown, West Virginia, following Highway 79, going to McConnell's, Ohio, which looks like a little bitty town on the map. The pickup's supposed to be late this afternoon, but I've noticed a lot of these pickups, I'd say 95% of them, if you come rolling in there early and you just kind of come in friendly, hey, I'm here for the load, I know it's late, I'm early, I just let you know I'm in the area, 95% of the time, they can hand it to you. It's already ready. That's real common. Supposedly, I was picking up a 1,400-pound pallet, and then I just got a text that said, "Oh, just kidding, you're getting two of them now." So now we're in 28 something. Uh, so of course I had to ask if I'm getting a double rate, and the answer is no, because they technically have the whole vehicle. But I could ask, I've heard that. So I want to do a little broadcast here early to let people take a look out the windows and let you know what's coming this evening. And a lot of people tune in to this, and I was always trying to figure out why. But it's the scenery. I get a lot of people from overseas, which makes me want to ask, where's everybody from that's on here? People dial up from overseas to watch this because they like to see the terrain we're driving on in the countryside and whatnot. So this is southbound I-79 in West Virginia out of Morgantown, rolling hills through the trees right now. And that's what you're seeing. And back out of here. You're not supposed to coast on the highway in your vehicle, but I do it all the time, which is what keeps my gas mileage up. And I have one guy that keeps popping up on my feed that gets mad at me for live streaming going down the road. He gets on here and he throws a fit. Yeah, I know. He gets on here and gets mad at me because I don't like me streaming because it's, quote, dangerous and illegal. And I'm not really sure how having your phone looking out the window and filming is dangerous and or illegal. He doesn't like it. So like I said, everybody on here, where's everybody from? What part of the country? What part of the world? I had my first guy from, I had a guy named Muhammad came in from Ethiopia, and I had a guy from down in Brazil, New Zealand, Toronto, Great Britain, a guy from Berlin. Uh, I had one girl on here. She was from South Africa. Thought that was kind of cool. So it's early Sunday morning here. I don't know where, the time other sides of the world. What's that? Sure. I'm trying to read this. It's really small. Short Kroll, Sherry Kroll, Sherry Crowley. The writing on my screen is so tiny. Central. I can't read that. I can't bend down that far. But hi. We are coming out of Morgantown, West Virginia, southwest bound on I-79. We're going over here for weather. We're going to swing back to the northwest and ending up in McConnells, Ohio for a pickup. We're doing 2 crates. I don't even know what it is. And it's going to Marysville, Michigan, which if you look at a map of Michigan and you were to drive through Detroit and just keep on driving north until you crash into the water, it's basically right there. That's our destination. But that's for tonight. The pickup is supposed to be at 5 o'clock today, which, again, I'm going to show up early for that. So like I said, I spent the night, 2 nights actually, well, a partial night and a night in a pilot in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I talked to the guy sitting next to me. It's real interesting. And he has the Dodge ProMaster van, and as they say, it looks like a stormtrooper had sex with a dustbuster. That's kind of the design. He's got a newer one, and he is extremely organized and had his inside of his van set up all professional. I say it was a little embarrassing, but it was a little embarrassing. But he's one of those guys. It's all organized, Makes you wonder. But he had a good setup. I have multiple water bottles and jugs, so you do a lot of water drinking on the road. I refill them at rest areas where you have the water fountain with a little spigot thing on top. You can set your bottles in, but I haven't found one recently. I am starting to run critically low on water, and I don't want to go spend $3 a bottle to refill it. So a rest area pops up at some point. I'm going to go take advantage of that. And old Jeff was asking me about the company. He's an independent operator. He does his own thing. He's on load boards and he's got his own dispatcher. That's the hardest way to do this, but he seems to know how. And while we were sitting there talking, his phone would be, and because he's on these load boards, he puts up the parameters of what he can carry, and it keeps it on where he's at. And his phone actually pings, and he can pick it up and open the phone and look to see what's out there. And he'll bid on loads. He did one sitting next to me, and he kind of asked about, what would I make on that. And I kind of gave him a generic number, and he bid, and nothing happened. But that's how they do that. But I guess that's how you self-dispatch. I mean, you're still going through a broker, but you're kind of self-dispatching, and I guess that would work. But I don't know. That seems like be a lot of stress trying to figure out as a private person driving down the road in your van at the same time trying to compete against somebody sitting at a desk whose full-time job is to find loads, and that's the only thing they're focused on. I think that would be difficult. But that's me. This is me talking. Uh, I have pitched on here more than once the Fetch app. Fetch as in throw a stick for your dog. It's an app that you take pictures of receipts, and it gives you points based on the receipt. And sometimes they give you a little, sometimes they give you a lot. And what they're doing supposedly is tracking your spending habits, and then they will try to nudge you in the direction of what they want you to buy if they see you buy a certain product. You got this guy. Uh, they want to nudge you in a direction, and after you gather up enough points, you cash it out for money. And you basically give you gift cards and whatnot. And I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I've made about $250 off of it. I mean, you can make money on Fetch. The only couple of limits to it is they won't let you do more than 35 receipts in a week, and the receipts can't be more than 14 days old. Let's see if this restaurant looks here. Like I said, I got to refill my water bottles at this point. I'm getting critically low. And that guy Jeff I was talking to said there's an identical company called Frisbee. Again, go in your apps, find Frisbee, and it's the exact same thing. Their format's a little different, but it's the same concept. Now, the trick on Fetch is you take a picture, receipt, gives you points, blah, blah, blah. If you take the picture again, it'll say this has already been submitted. If you get your wife's phone, because she has the same thing, and I take a picture of a receipt I just did, it will say, no, this one's already been scanned. But if you take the Frisbee app, you can start over again fresh. So you get 10 receipts, do 10, and then jump over on Frisbee, which their limit's 40 receipts a week, and you take it over there. So you're kind of doubling your production. And the little cue to keep in mind is it's pictures of receipts. It didn't say yours. It just said receipts. And the most profitable ones are food related. And it's the best ones I've ever found are Walmart. Walmart receipts seem to have whatever it is they're looking for. And I had one, my mother gave it to me. And the receipt was so big, I had to take 3 pictures of it. And I got 4,400 points off it. And at 12,500, they give you $10. So look for receipts. It'll also, I know for a fact, Fetch will electronically, if you link your phone to your Amazon account or whatever, it'll scan those too. So this is a quick rest area stop. I'm going to see if I can get my water bottles full. That's basically what I'm doing here. No trucks. Yeah, like they pay attention to that. Well, marker 122. Yeah, the states have these all over the place. That's handicap. Hold on, I gotta back up here. Gotta back up. Oh crap. All right, I'm gonna let this run because I'm just gonna jump out and run over there and try to get some water. So please bear with me. I won't be gone long. I'm not even gonna shut the van off. So hold on 1 second. Please don't run off. Give me about 3 minutes or less. This lady back. All right, they had water, but the pump was slower than Christmas, so I filled up my one container, my aluminum one, and the clear one I got a little bit, and I stopped because it just took too long. Good water, came out clean, came out cold. It just was moving too slow. Cool shoes. Alrighty, here we go, back on the road. Yeah, if you're doing a lot of driving, you need to get out and walk. You have to keep your muscles moving. You have to keep your blood circulating. You can actually get blood clots and stuff if you sit too much. That's one of the downsides of a driving job and a flying job, but traditionally we don't fly so much that you're stuck. Oh, that guy locked himself out of his car. Oh, that sucks. You fly, you don't fly that much, you get out. Just, a little bit here, a little bit there. But driving, you can be stuck in this seat forever. Working back on the highway. Superchargers engaged. The city of Morgantown, when I'm sitting somewhere, I have a tendency to look up what's happening in the town. Is there any attractions? Who's from there? Something like that. I looked for a museum. I didn't find anything that really caught my fancy. If I didn't have a load, I don't know what I was going to do today. And it turns out Don Knotts is from here. And if you're not old enough to remember Don Knotts, he was an actor, comedian from really much the 40s into the 80s is what his reign was. And he was the sheriff Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show. Remember him? And he had a bunch of series, Mr. Limpet and whatnot. Little guy, he had a really interesting voice, great actor, very entertaining for adults and for kids. And when I was 13 years old, I believe, my brother was 15, I've talked about this in the past. We come from an airline family, so we spent an incredible amount of time growing up bouncing from airports and planes, and we were just always as kids. We were left on our own, single-digit age, and we would go to airports, get on flights, and fly out because our parents were divorced. So I grew up at the airport. That was my playground. And I don't even know why, but we were getting on a plane. They used to have a shuttle flight. This is back before 9/11, and they changed all the rules. They had a shuttle flight that ran Vegas, Reno, Vegas, back and forth. It was a 737. And you get a ticket, and it was a plastic ticket that looks kind of like the handicap placard you put in your car. I mean, it kind of looked like that. It was real thick. That was your ticket, and it was just generic. And you pay for your ticket, and they hand you one. And Southwest Airlines, it was cattle car. They would just go sit down, get in, sit down, shut. We don't care where you sit. Good morning from Mocha City, Oklahoma. Glad to see you. Just going by smoothly. Oh, okay. Hey, Raymond. Yeah, we're back. Real quick, we left Morgantown, West Virginia, and I'm cruising on over to McConnellsville, Ohio, for a late afternoon pickup. And I got a supposed 3:00 in the morning delivery north of Detroit in the little teeny town of Marysville, which is right up on the water, right there. So we're doing the run over there. So back where I was at, my brother and I jumped on a shuttle flight from Vegas going to Reno. It's only an hour or something. It's a real short flight. And they give you that plastic ticket, and they basically say, run in, sit down. The plane leaves at 5:02. You better be sitting down because the plane's going to push back from the concourse. That's why Southwest Airlines they've got their act together, because they leave on time. And they only had, at the time, I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but at the time they only had 737. So all their aircraft were standardized, their crew were standardized, their maintenance, everything. I mean, they had a good thing going. So my brother and I run on the plane, and those planes were set up. There was no first class cabin. They were just one big cattle car, slob class coach seating. So we were one of the last people on because we're non-revenue, because we're freebies. And you come in, and there was 3 rows seats. There's a little old guy in the old guy hat. Those old guy hats that have like a brim that bend down. They go all around their head. Old guy in an old guy hat by the window, and 2 empty seats. So we drop in, and I get in the middle. My brother gets on the left by the aisle, and we sit down, and we take off. And this is back when they used to give drinks away. They wouldn't argue and fight, charge you money. And the woman says, well, you have a drink. And I said this, my brother said that. And the old man said something. And the split second he opened his mouth, your brain goes, you know that voice. And my brother and I kind of looked at each other and we glanced over and it was Don Knotts sitting next to us. And he could go undercover, nondescript. I mean, just like that. We looked over at him and I was like, wait a minute. And he looked at us and he smiled and we talked for a second. I didn't want to bother him. We talked for a second. And it was just interesting to be that close to somebody who is world renowned. And he had spoken. Then I kind of left him alone. Then he spoke to me a little bit later. I don't remember what he talked about, but I really enjoyed having that random encounter with someone of his, that stature. Last time I went through Ohio, the road conditions about death. Yeah, it's the whole state highways are under construction. I tell you, the one highway I hit in Ohio on a regular basis is 80, and 80 is pretty good, but 80 is a toll road. I what's going on with my GPS? I do not have a fondness for toll roads. Did I miss something up here? Looks like it looks like I may have missed a turn. That's almost impossible. How did that happen? It is rerouting me. Yeah, I was making this drive we're on right now. It was showing the route I was going to take, and now it's saying it wants me to take a different route. I wonder if something happened. Okay, off the highway and whip a U-turn. But the chunk of 80 between Cleveland and the border going west is a toll road. And I do not have fondness for toll roads. I don't like paying taxes on top of taxes on top of taxes, so you can pay them some more taxes to have the great honor of driving on the road you already pay tax on. So I have a tendency to dodge toll roads, and I'll be dodging a toll road because on this run tonight, I go through Cleveland and you kind of go up along the coastline, and there's a secondary road up there that I actually like driving on. If that's the route it takes me, I got to make sure I'm seeing this right, and it kind of goes around that area, the tolls. And tonight, my route is going to take us by headquarters, this company's headquarters. I'm going to drop off my paperwork, which I do, and I'm going to run a load of laundry and take a shower. But first, I'm going to change my oil because there is a place in the back of the parking lot where there's a little mound of asphalt, and I need that little mound because I drive the van right tire up on it, which lifts the vehicle. Whoa, red light, red light, red light. At a completion for could have biggest potholes. I think they last a few cars and semis and train and a couple of. Yeah, I've been driving over the years. You're cruising along on a highway and all of a sudden the texture of the road just changes. You just, blah, starts making a different noise and you just have to look around and go, what just happened? And you cross state line and it's like shocking how much better or worse the road suddenly gets, depending on how they're doing it. The cousin that the wife and I are going to be hanging out with here, him and his wife, this coming week, he works for the New York State Thruway, and that's his job. So, of course, we constantly talk about how horrible the highways are. Because, you got to do it because we're related. There we go. And this thing about the New York State Thruways that kind of cracks me up is they built those and they made them pay. You got to pay to go on it. It was a bond. It was a 30-year bond. And they signed it off in 1955. So 30 years later, 1985, that 30 years is coming up and the bond expires and the state goes, well, well, we're kind of addicted to all that free money, so we're just going to keep on running this forever. And they have, and they've never shut it down, and they never will. It's just a cash cow for them, which I think is wrong. So yeah, this is routing me up Okay, so it wants me to go Route 50. I know, two and a half miles up, or I got to turn off again. You see that vehicle right there, that off-road vehicle? Well, I was sitting at the gas station there for the day and a half. I watched at least a half a dozen vehicles that look kind of like that drive into the gas station, like a car. They don't have license plates, they're not street legal, but they just pull into the gas station. I think that I had a competition for who would have the biggest potholes. um, yeah, I was, where was I? Arizona, and they had a really bad heat wave, and it swelled the concrete somehow. The concrete plates pushed together like two plates, and it bent upward, and there was like a 5 or 6 inch, call it a speed bump, sharp speed bump in the middle of the road, and they literally had to have people standing there flagging people because it was so violent. They had to come out and grind it off. I mean, you see it, and you go, "Whoa!" But you'd hit that at 40 miles an hour. You'd lose your whole vehicle. But it's right in the middle of the road, right in the middle of a main road. Bad. Yeah, we're going on a scenic tour here. 1.3 miles. I get off on US 50 is what it says. I don't know why it routed me down here, and it said, "Oh, P.S. We're going back." Yeah, it's 20.4. Yeah, go over this lane. Then for at your back door, put the pedal to the metal and let her roar. Yeah, it's a shame. That reminds me, CB back on. Yeah, the CB radios got real quiet the last, I don't know, 5, 8 years. James, hello. Where are you from? Where's everybody from? I always ask that question. I'm curious. People are tuning in from. We're on a run from Morgantown, West Virginia, kind of doing a little C shape and going back up to McConnell's Ohio for a pickup this evening. Well, they say this evening. I'm going to be rolling in there probably around noontime and say, "Hey, what's up?" And usually it's ready, but I'm going to go find out the hard way here. Any paperwork for completed loads I submit by midnight tonight is going to be on Friday's paycheck. And I don't think I'm going to make it by midnight tonight. So this will be the kickoff for next week's check. North Carolina. I am a welder. I am a pipe welder. That's serious work too. That's a cool job. That's the thing. Everybody, got to go to college. Stop. Got to go to college. Got to go to college. We all can't have a job where we sit behind a desk and push buttons. Somebody has to know how to actually work. So yeah, pipe welding, plumbing and general electricians. That is a very necessary type of work. We all can't be philosophers. We all can't be YouTubers. I do YouTube because it entertains me, and I have the time to do it. Pipeline welder, right on. James, you work what, oil and gas, or you take pipeline? You're talking about the petroleum pipeline or water, or what's your thing? Oh, 82 miles on this road. No kidding. Yeah, this job, what I'm doing here, I don't know if you're new on here, this is expediting. This is kind of like poor man's truck driving. Expediting is doing essentially the same job, except on a smaller scale. We have like 1 or 2 pallets. I'll be picking up 2 pallets today. And this operates outside of CDL rules. You don't even have to have a CDL to do this. You drive under the same rules that you drive a car. There's no logbooks. There's no time limitations. I don't go to weight checkpoints. I don't go to commercial vehicle checkpoints. I am completely ignored by the Department of Transportation. This is a Vanessa high back. We got one from North Carolina. I don't know where everybody else is from, though. I'm always curious about that. And this is a job you can get into any old time you want to. You don't have to go through any type of special training. even though if you sign on with a company, they'll give you an orientation of how they do their 111 pounds, 5 feet height. James, 22 pounds, 5'8", height, better. Oh, yeah, this job right here, there's not a lot of younger people that do this. This is more of a, I call it old guy / towards retirement age stuff. You know, that's kind of more what this is for. But yeah, you're at that age and you start in. That's good because you're in a good line of work. That's a good place to be. Uh, People willing to work. It's like I said, it's unusual, and you can, if you're starting out, you're good at what you do, and start getting some experience, you'll be able to do well in that industry. Old truck driver saying called the White Knight used to run radio about 30 years. Into a little trouble because I had possible. Yeah, that's like I said, the CB radio. I have one. Most people don't. There's your squelch. Most people don't. Sprinter drivers don't. What I'm doing, but the radios are generally quiet these days. I don't know why. I don't know why the culture changed. But if something happens, they light up. There's an accident or traffic stops. If I am cruising down the interstate and the traffic is backed up on the other side, I will announce why and what lane you need to be in so the truckers know to get over. And my uncle drove for the better part of 50 years, and he was telling me about boosted radios and higher. Now, today, they manufactured radio, and they still make them, and they still sell them, so obviously they're being used. The legal limit is 4 watts. And I went to an old style CD shop by my house, and I asked the guy. He'd been there forever. I asked him about that, the 4 watt. He goes, "No, they won't come off. They won't come out of the factory at beyond 4 watts, but you can do whatever you want to. Nobody cares, and nobody looks into it. No one's gonna come by and test your radio." He said they don't care. They're just that's the manufacturing limit. I have a unit in 510 here. I actually mounted it to the seat next to me. It's down by hip level instead of mounting it overhead. Oh, hold on a sec here. I gotta watch the road. Look at these little lines in the road. You can feel every one of those. I'm in West Virginia right now, Universal. I pay more because I have to travel. I get paid. Yeah, that's travel's part. That's cool. You got a per diem or a mileage. I mentioned this more times than I can remember. I was a commercial helicopter pilot. I did that for 35 years with a couple of breaks due to COVID and whatnot, but I did it for almost the full time 35 years until last fall. And my last job, they made me, I was a field medical, and they made me what was called a floater pilot. And I got into the most awesome financial position of life I've ever been in. I drove a Mini Cooper, tweaked out Mini Cooper to go to work. And these fools would pay me to drive to work, mind you, not be at work. I got 67 cents a mile and $75 an hour to drive to work in another state. I got paid my day rate of the 12 hours, which was astronomical. And then I got paid $75 an hour and 67 cents a mile to drive home. And I'm looking at this and I'm asking, how is it possible you could do that? And some of the helicopters, you have standalone, which sit at an airport, and then you have hospital-based helicopters. And if they don't have one of the crew members, a nurse, the medic, or the paramedic, or the pilot, they get fined something like $20,000 a day if they don't have it crewed properly. So they don't mind spending a few grand to have somebody there to keep the aircraft, even though maybe it doesn't fly. I mean, it was that's how intense that business was. And a lot of people say, "Oh my God, it's really expensive and it's a big ripoff." It is insanely expensive to operate medical helicopters with the insurance and the regulations and all the stuff. And you only get paid on 30% of your loads. The other 70%, the insurance companies weasel their way out of it, or the person you give a ride doesn't pay you anyway. So that's how That's how bad it is. Raymond. I now run ham radio and so main 2 meter, occasionally switch to 70 centimeter and part low ham radio. Whoa, red light. Sneak up on me with a traffic light while I'm reading the screen. Also storm spotter from local. Oh, right on. Can they sound the tornado sirens based on spotter observation? Wow, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. I do know back in the 40s and 50s, talking about weather spotters, there were people all over the United States that had barometric pressure reading equipment the government put on their property. And I don't know, once a day, twice a day, I don't know when they did it, but people would go out and read it, be outside, and they would call a phone number and they would call a number in and they would put it in the national chart to show the weather trends, the barometric pressure trends. And they weren't paid for it. They just did it. You know, it was like call it a civil duty or a hobby. But they would do that for years. And that's how they would make the weather maps and the condition maps. And I thought, that's kind of cool. Self-employed, dude, that's perfect. That's perfect. Put yourself out there. Go on LinkedIn. Give yourself a profile on LinkedIn. Let them know, this is what I do. This is how I travel. When I worked in the Gulf of Mexico, or the Gulf of America, depending on where you're standing, we call it the Gulf of Mexico. I would fly out all these the regular guys that ran the platforms, but I would go pick up specialty people. The guy does instrumentation. This guy works on generators. This guy calibrates equipment. You have these guys that floated up and down the coastline, no pun intended. And they would say, okay, go to the beach and grab this dude and bring him out. And I go, okay. And I say, wait a minute. Okay, that's why this is bouncing around. I'm going to have to pull off up here. I did not properly seat belt my air conditioner in on my seat next to me. So when I get a chance, I got to pull off. That's why it's bouncing. The bungee cord ain't doing it. But anyway, I would go out and I'd go to the beach and pick up a guy, and he'd come work on some equipment. And one day I went in, caught this guy, and he was kind of heavy set, normal guy, but he could twist his face around and start talking like a complete moron and just go, dude. He would start talking and make himself physically look funny. So I could describe it. If he could just switch back and forth. And I said, well, what do they have you working on? He goes, I work on everything. And I said, any specialty? He goes, nope. And he opened up his paperwork and he handed me his resume. And his resume was an off-white piece of paper written in green crayon that says, I fix broke stuff. And it had his name and his phone number. So a lot of it's automated. Cars is one of the projects. They run gauge. You can also arrange. Okay, wow, you do all that kind of stuff. So this guy, I don't remember his name, and he said, it literally said on his resume, I fix broke stuff. And I said, you get calls? He goes, all the time, because people look at that and they go, this guy's either a complete idiot or he's extremely good at what he does. And the answer was, he was extremely good at what he does. So he came out and he went to fix a generator, and he had all these tools, and he fixed a generator. And then he turned to him and he said, what else is broken on this platform? And refrigeration, plumbing, electrical, pneumatic, anything mechanical, this guy could fix. And they go, well, this isn't working right. He goes, okay. And he turns to me and he hands me all his tools. He goes, let's load the tools up. And he drove a tool truck. And he said, get everything out of box 2 and 4. And he gave me the keys to his truck. So I fly to the beach, empty out boxes 2 and 4, which one's full of refrigeration tooling and equipment, and pressure bottles and stuff. And the other one, I don't know what it was. And this guy would literally drift around your platform and fix every broken thing you had. That's the kind of skill he had. Jack of all trades, master of none. Exactly. This guy, and it was mind-boggling what this guy's skill level was. And he just floated around the Gulf and did that. And I just thought that's kind of cool to be that skilled. But his resume is what cracked me up. I fix broke stuff. And they would say, well, what do you work on? His answer was, uh-huh. And this guy wasn't 30 years old. Look at this terrain. This is Highway 50, West Virginia. by the way. Here's a street sign. Salem, West Union, and Parkersburg. So, yeah, I need to find a convenient place to pull off. I have my air conditioner sitting on the seat next to me. I bring it out in the summer, and it's bungee corded at the top and seat belted in the middle bottom. And I just looked over and noticed I didn't seat belt it this morning. Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's rolling hills and lots of trees. This is the kind of terrain. If you walk off the road, you'd pretty much disappear within about 2 steps because the undergrowth is so thick. Let's see. That's not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. Anybody just jumping on board? Got a call late last night, sleeping at the Pilot in Morgantown, West Virginia, doing a lazy reposition to McConnellsville, Ohio, 120-ish miles-ish, for a pickup supposedly at 5 o'clock local, which may or may not happen. And usually when you show up early, they're like, hey, it's here, take it, go. And they're cool with it, so I'll be there a little early. And it was one pallet at 1,400 pounds that magically turned into 2 pallets at 2,800. So that's getting close to my payload capacity. See, I work for the highway high better because I am self-employed. Yeah, that's cool. Being self-employed. Who do you get? Like, do you have like insurance? Do you operate underneath somebody? Because this guy that I knew, he operated under a company. I want to say ProSafe or something. He was somebody he was contractually attached to. Well, so we're going. This is Highway 50, West Virginia. Like I said, I'm just enjoying the scenery here, even with the ugly construction. But yeah, I think when I signed on with this company, this is a Transit 250 medium roof, extended or a long wheelbase, and it has a maximum gross weight of 9,070 pounds. How's that for a nice round number? This company literally drove my van onto a scale and weighed it so they know exactly what it'll haul. And it's like 3,020 pounds. And this load is 2,850 I'm picking up. Crocodiles have penises. I had somebody pop on here the other day and said, what do you call a rich Chinese guy? Cha-ching. I don't know, do they? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People just pop in here and throw a joke out. Whoa, that's a vibration on the road. I just tossed that one out. He came on, said that joke, and left. It's like, okay, that was kind of cool. I made my morning video. I have I'm not much of a coffee person, but if you make it frou-frou enough, I can drink it. Don't do it. He did it. Crap. I have a little tiny coffee cup, a little aluminum thing. I bought it at a secondhand store for like 25 cents. I like it. And if you frou-frou coffee up enough, I can drink it. And the guy next to me said, when I was talking to another expediter, he said, you want some coffee? I'm like, he goes, I got a little tiny Keurig. You can try this. And I said, okay. And I got my little cup. And there's a video. I put it out this morning. It looks like the cup was made for that little machine. It was like an off-brand miniature Keurig. And if you look at the video, the screen is getting blurry because the road is vibrating underneath me. It looks like the cup was built for and matches this little machine. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe it actually came with that machine at some point, and the cup got separated and turned into turned into the Goodwill, whatever that place was. Most of these people are fake, rich. They like getting the cool points out that are respect. Oh, everybody, that's something about people is people like to put on a front of finances and success. That's the human condition. Hi to what? WF y'all. Yeah, you're sitting at a traffic light and you look over at some dude in his BMW. You assume, oh, that guy must be doing really well financially, or he's in debt up to his eyeballs and has $100,000 in credit card bills, and lives in a burnt up mobile home out in the woods somewhere. That's They're about 15 miles from where I live. I was out running around one day and I got out literally in sticks and I found trailer parks come in different levels of sophistication and cleanliness. This was the bottom feeder of the bottom feeder of the bottom feeder. Trailer parks. The roads were just nothing but potholes. The trailers were 15, 20 years past their service life. There were a lot of old fifth wheels and there's nowhere to go from here other than a tent. And most of the cars parked in front of the houses were new. People always got his fancy Mustang. This guy's over here got a Lexus. I'm going, dude, you live in a shed, but you got a pretty car. So you don't let somebody's car dictate their finances. Everybody's putting on that front of you got to keep up with the Joneses. And when people are younger, that's really a big deal. When you get older, you don't want to compete with the Joneses and you don't care. And as somebody said to me once, when you're young, you care what everybody thinks of you. When you're like 20 years old. When you're 40 years old, you won't care what anybody thinks of you. By the time you're 60 years old, you will realize that nobody was paying attention to you in the first place. And that's just being honest about it. Quit trying to keep up with the Joneses because the Joneses can't even keep up with the Joneses. It's not a light, is it? Okay. Right? Hold it. Don't you come out. Don't you come out. You're lucky. When my wife was younger, third world citizen. Right on. Hello. When she was younger, a teenager, she actually modeled. She got into modeling. She worked for Neiman Marcus in Saks Fifth Avenue. And I have a couple of those pictures on the wall. They're in black and white. They're really cool in our house. And she's been talking about the changes. Oh, my truck I have a stick welding machine, a big welding machine. Yeah, I mean, our car, we have, at this point, we're down to one car. It's a 2014 Kia Soul. We bought it new. So it's 11 years old. Still looks like a new car. Comfortable to drive. We like it. We're not buying anything anytime soon. But the modeling industry has changed. It's gone through so much transition from when she did it. And you see people running around. You see these young girls, and here's a picture of a model, and she looks phenomenal. The girls go, oh, I want to look like her. I got some bad news. You're not going to get to look like her, and I'll tell you why. We caught a documentary about modeling, and this girl walks into this place, and she has no makeup on. She looks plain. She's just an average person. She walks in and got her hair up. They take her in. They do her hair. They do her picture. They do her face. They take her picture. She's attractive when they're done. Then they put her picture on a screen, and the guy gets out the computer and does this and this, this and this and this. It looks 101% real, and it's perfect, and it's flawless. And then you take that picture and compare it to what she looked like when she walked through the door, and it is as far as the East is from the West. So, ladies, if the girl in the picture can't look like the girl in the picture, chances are you aren't either. So don't try to compare your place in life or your appearance, fake, that is, and just compete against yourself. Just be the best you can be. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be this photo. It used to be Photoshop, and then it was filters, and now it's AI. You look at these dating app things, and I watched a video, came across scrolled across my screen. This one was mad. She went on a date with somebody, and she had, don't you pull out. She went on a date, and the guy basically left almost immediately because her profile picture was AI generated, and it was her in Paris. Well, the picture didn't look like her, and she's never been overseas. 2050 Kia Sportage, 31,000 miles there, one payment left. 31,000 miles, jeez. Yeah, we bought ours back in the day. I think we got 92,000 on ours. The girl's never been overseas, never been to Paris, and she had an AI picture, and her statement was, yeah, it was AI, but it looks just like me. Well, if it looks just like you, why did you have to use an AI picture? And I don't think that was a truthful statement anyway. Resolution and audio quality just dropped. Oh, seriously? I'm in the mountains. I apologize. I'm in the mountains, and occasionally these feeds drop, and I don't know what's going to happen. It may fall offline. It may come back. It may not. I apologize. But my screen's clear, and sometimes it's resolution audio quality just dropped. I'm hoping this keeps working. I apologize for this, but I didn't realize I was cutting through the woods. Too deep data. Let me know if it gets better or worse, by the way. But hopefully we can just look at the scenery here a little bit. Yeah, so don't waste your time. Oh, I found out something that happened. I hope you can hear me. When I bought my van, I had to put tires on it, and I called Discount Tire because they're the easiest one. They're right by our house to find, and it was going to cost me roughly $1,000 for 4 tires. And you know those mobile tire services that come to you? You think, oh, you're paying extra money for that door-to-door service. You're not. They actually are cheaper because they don't have a storefront, they don't have any employees, and they don't have inventory. You order the tires, they go pick them up, but the next day they show up at your house and do it. So I got the same tires that were going to cost a breath over $1,000 for $600. Okay, I apologize. I don't know this area, and what I don't understand about streaming is it will cut out and it will stop in certain areas, and I can turn around and call my wife and talk to her face to face. And I don't understand that. And it works flawlessly in the exact same place. The stream won't work at all. So I don't know if this is a higher level of transmission or what. Hope you can see some of this. This is really beautiful through here. So if you're getting tires on your car, your truck, whatever you drive, call one of those mobile places and see what their price is. Because the guy that I use it by where I live, it's called Treads with a Z. He drives like an old U-Haul truck. He's got the compressor. He's got the tire balancer. He came to my house and jacked the truck up, boom, boom, done, and left. Beautiful rock wall. So that was serious money. And now I've got, how many miles I have? Let's see. I have 43,000 miles on this van since I started in March. And my tires are kind of on the back side of their life, so I'm going to have to put some more on here in the not distant future. And for some strange reason, the back tires on this van wear out faster than the front tires. In the fronts, I run 60. In the back, I run, I think, 85 pounds. But the back tires show wear quick. I'm spinning the thing through. But I rotated them when we did the struts up front here a couple weeks ago. Had to adjust the pressures. Beautiful day outside. And if anybody's just coming in, I was talking earlier. I was sitting at the pilot yesterday talking to another expediter, a guy named Jeff. Real nice guy. We talked for hours. While we were sitting there in the shade in our umbrella chairs, a woman pulled up across from us in a black car. She popped the hood, and she was dressed for the office. And she said, her phone in her hand, and she's looking out under the hood, and she pulled the dipstick out halfway, and I was like, okay, she's got an issue. So I got up and grabbed my oil rag, and I walked over. And I said, what you got going on? She goes, I got an oil light cable. So I used my rag, pulled her dipstick out. It was dry, bone dry, nothing. Nothing. And I went, oh, that's not a good sign. So I said, have you had the oil changed recently? She looked at her windshield, went inside, and she said it was like 4,000 miles ago. I do it at 5,000. All right, so you're not showing anything. Not low, not high, nothing. So she had a quart of oil. I put it in and checked it, and it was just tipping top, like 1/16 of an inch on the bottom of the oil stick. I said, and I looked under the car. I'm thinking, is there a leak? Is an oil plug missing? And there's nothing on the ground. So I went, all right, pour it in. Give me more oil. She bought 2 more quarts. I ended up putting all 3 of them in. And she had a check engine light, oil pressure light. So started up. Got to let it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't figure this one out. Well, if it's leaking out the bottom or the oil plug is missing, it's going to be all over the ground. It's not. If the engine is slinging the oil, it's going to be all over the engine compartment. It's going to be somewhere. So then I walked around the back, and I showed her what I was doing, the tailpipe. You stick your finger in the tailpipe, kinky, you stick your finger in the tailpipe and rub it, come out, it's going to be black. It's going to be sooty. But if it's oily, that tells you the oil's going out the tailpipe. You're burning it through the pistons or worn out. It wasn't. It was sooty. And I have no idea how this happened. But I don't know how your engine was running. Was it making ticking and slapping sounds? She said no. I went, I did. So it took 3 quarts to get into the normal range. I said, I highly recommend you leave here and go to the closest oil change place you could find and tell them what happened and get them up under that car to see if there's something going on. Because that doesn't even make sense. There's no oil in there. And as I was thinking about it later, and she bought synthetic oil, which is what I run. If there is the possibility she was running crap oil, non-synthetic, and then not changing it somebody previously, you know how you take the covers off the heads and there's all that sludge and gunk and goo. You've seen videos of that. I'm wondering if it just solidified the oil and it wasn't liquid anymore. I don't know. But I said, take it there. Catalytic converter is burning it off. Check engine light was probably on because of oxygen. So you think it was going out the tailpipe, but wouldn't some of that be coming out the pipe? I mean, the liquid, you'd feel the moisture because we're talking about 4,000 miles of driving and 3 quarts of oil missing. That's a lot of oil. But I told her, take it to an oil change place and tell them what happened and see what they think. This is outside of my realm. And she asked about the check engine light. And I said, what happens with those is every time you start your car, your check engine light does a circuit. And I've had one in the van before. It was pouring down rain one day real hard. I got it. And after you've started a few times, it can reset itself. And mine reset, never came back on again. So I think water got into something in here. God, this is nice. How's the video feed, by the way? Blue smoke. It wasn't smoking. It wasn't smoking when she pulled in. It wasn't smoking when she left. And like I said, there was no moisture at all in that tailpipe. So maybe they got, maybe they could figure that one out. Yeah, I've seen the cars going down the road with the blue smoke coming out of them. That's yeah, you're pretty much, your pistons are shot by the time you get to that. So for everybody out there, just remember, you need to do your maintenance on your vehicles. And the life and death of your vehicle comes to your oil. That is the engine oil. That is vital to the life of it. And I was watching something the other day that said Mercedes builds their products based on the idea. Better, but not back to normal. Okay, well, I'm still rolling. I apologize. Mercedes built vehicles based on the theory that their owners are going to meticulously take care of them. Toyota builds their vehicles based on people being shoddy with maintenance. I thought that was interesting. Let's slide over. I hope this turns before. Nope. Okay. Look at all the skid marks on the road. for the trucks. And you see the little skips? That's when the trailer locks up and starts bouncing when it's empty. All right. Slowing down. This has me getting there at 11:40, and I don't pick up till 5 o'clock. But I will show my face. Hey, I'm here. Okay, here we go. Over, I have communication on my phone. The codes for the. Most people own those. Most people have, that are mechanically inclined, and I'm not putting myself in that category. Welcome to nearby home in West Virginia. That's where we are. We're on Highway 50, zigzagging through the mountains here. Yeah, a lot of people have those code things. And that's something you got to think about when you're buying a used car. If there's a check engine light, they'll reach under the dash and reset the button just so you won't see it. So having your code reader is important. It was $6.56. Oh, it's the whole thing. It's not like the little box. I'm only familiar with the little box. Yeah, I bought this van in January. I went operational in March, and it had 109,000 miles on it. And when you buy a used vehicle, you have to assume that the previous owner didn't do jack squat to it. The truck I used for my rig is a 13 Chevy Silverado 35 HD work truck. First truck is a 13 Chevy Silverado. That's perfect. Like I said, we have a 14, and I don't want to brag. I don't want to make anybody jealous, but I also have a Suzuki Bergman scooter. So please, no, your jealousy means nothing to me. Please stop. And we've had the same. Now, when I was younger, I think I was guilty of playing musical cars like everybody else, but yeah, we're good to go. Our car's paid for, my scooter's paid for, everything's paid for. I'm happy with what I have. But I've put 43,000 miles on this vehicle, 44,000 miles on this van, and the struts, just from age, it's 100. I'm currently sitting on 153,000 miles. The front struts just got worn out, and I would hit a bump and it would make a sound like the van was coming apart. So other than regular services, that's all we've done. But when I bought it, of course, did oil change, replaced the air filter, and the air filter on these vans lasts a long time because it's the size of a small country. Replaced the spark plugs, which were original. You had to take the manifold off to get out. Replaced the transmission in its drain and fill, and it was pretty bad. It wasn't dead, but it was bad. And then the radiator. And a lot of people never do anything with the radiator. And the fluid gets hot and cold and hot and cold, hot and cold, and then it starts to break down and it turns acidic and it'll start to chew up your engine. And they pulled the fluid out and they looked at it and they said it was right on the threshold of causing problems. So we caught it early. With your job, you can use it. The fan can help you with maintenance. Line of streets, and it shows you misfire. Okay, yeah, I understand how those things work. Again, I don't want to dazzle you with my computer skills and my mechanical skills or my dancing skills, exotic or otherwise. But yeah, I see what you're saying. But I keep up. Like I said, tonight I'm going to be doing my oil change this evening at the head shed, because at the back parking lot there is a little mound of asphalt, and I can get my right front tire up on the asphalt, and it lifts the van high enough up to be able to get under it, because there's not enough room for an oil pan and a human arm under there. But I'm doing my oil change. Pack of Camel Red. What's Camel Red? Is that a chewing tobacco? I don't even know what that is. Oh, slow down, slow down. Again, I apologize if this video is not coming. I'm glad it's rolling, because a lot of places I go, it just cuts out completely. And that's mildly annoying. But if you're coming in late, we're going left Morgantown here a while ago, Morgantown, West Virginia, from McConnells, Ohio, for an afternoon pickup for a night run going to Marysville, Michigan, which is straight north of Detroit, almost when you hit the water right there. It's like the last town. 2,800 and something pounds, 2 pallets, which is just about the capacity of this vehicle. But when they're paying for it, they get the whole thing, So that's cigarettes. Yeah, you know, in the 70s and 80s when I was a kid, everybody smoked. Everybody smoked back then. Nowadays, unusual. You don't really see smokers like you do back in the day. Remember, the military was out of control. I was telling a story the other night about cigarettes. When I enlisted in the Army, I was an enlisted guy first, and I crewed a M1 tank, and we went on maneuvers, they call Reforger. We flew from Fort Hood to Germany, and we have vehicles that are in the warehouses. We jumped in and drove off the war. And cigarettes at the time, I don't know what's going on now, but back then, the Western cigarettes, American cigarettes, were highly coveted, and cigarettes in general in Germany were insanely expensive, to the point that most people actually had rollers in their pockets. They would make their own cigarettes. But American cigarettes were used for bribery. There were guys over there who you could buy them. A GI could buy a certain number of cartons of cigarettes at stateside prices on post, and they were used to pay their rent. 2 cartons of cigarettes would pay your rent. That's how bad it was. So black marketing was a big deal at the time, and everybody that was a smoker carried. They're allowed to bring a carton, which I think is 10 packs. Could bring a carton with them on the plane, and every non-smoker was carrying cigarettes for a smoker, including me. I had 10 packs of Marlboros in my pockets for somebody that had me stashing full. We got right up on the east-west German border, and there was red light. There was an area where the border came so close that I saw a East German soldier walking, and I was standing there watching him. We were pretty close together. There was this big fence between us, and he's got his head down, and he has that giant, oversized helmet they used to wear. Hey, Linda, what's up? And he got to almost directly across from me. And I thought he didn't see me, and he did. And he got across, and he stopped, and he turned, and he looked at me. And we're not 20 feet apart, staring at each other. And he's wearing his outfit, and on his collar with these little epaulets, where they were actually tanks. And I pointed to his epaulets, and I pointed at him. And he looked at the epaulet, looked back at me, and I started to pull that pack of cigarettes out of my pocket. Now, if the West Germans like Marlboros, the East Germans were gaga over them, because that pack didn't make it halfway out of my pocket, and that guy dropped his rifle on the ground, took his lapel pins off, and threw them over the fence. And I threw the pack to him, and he picked them up, stuffed it in his pocket, picked up his rifle, ducked his head, and kept walking. And I went, this guy, this is not his first time to the rodeo. That happened a little bit too naturally, a little too precise, and like he's been down this road. That kind of cracked me up. But I had those little lapel pins. They were T-55 tanks. I don't even know what happened to them over years, but that was one of my things that I enjoyed. But the Germans and their cigarettes was absolutely insane. And I remember guys that would be stationed in Germany back in the 80s, and they literally would pay their rent with 4 cartons of cigarettes. Think about that. He's gonna pull out in front of me. Crap. Right, I'm drifting. Is he gonna make it? Oh, right on, dude. Thank you. But that was a whole market over there for that. Yeah, today you see somebody smoking an actual cigarette, and you stop and go, huh? You kind of notice it. And I'm old enough to remember when they used to smoke at movie theaters. It's I'm a kid. There's just this haze drifting around between you and the screen. As a little kid, you'd look up and go, and you'd watch it move. Just you're a kid. You don't think anything of it. And I remember our neighbors when I was like 7 or 8 years old. Our neighbors in California, husband and wife team, fill the gas pedal. Yeah, he did. I'm glad too. But my friend next door, Mark Dittmer was his name. His parents both smoked, straight chain smoked. Nobody knew any better back then. You'd be in the house all the time. Well, they were gonna move their house around or something. They pulled a picture off a wall, and there was this massive square on the wall with the picture had been because of smoke, the nicotine had permeated the wall. It almost seemed like they were angry about the square because it was like the paint's fault or something. It faded. Or like, yeah, smoking on planes, smoking in the workplace. I remember I think it was in the late 80s, when the rules changed, when you couldn't smoke at work, people threw a fit. Absolutely threw a fit about that. Limiting, where you could smoke. I remember the colossal, you would think you were torturing them with hot pokers or something. I don't know. People, the smoking is fading noticeably. I don't know about the rest of the world, but yeah, you don't really see it anymore. Me personally, never tried. It didn't interest me. And when I stop for fuel here, eventually, I need to refill my generator. I had it running last night to run my air conditioner while I was sleeping. And as the morning started to approach, I noticed it was getting more humid inside my van. And my air conditioner sits on the seat next to me. It's vented out the window. And then I have a sweat top I shoved to seal the rest of the window up. And I have a curtain between, and my bunk is right here behind me, and it's up high, right behind my head. And I have a curtain I hang down that kind of isolates the air in the front half of the van. And it gets comfortable in here pretty quick when it starts running. And I'm just sleeping at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's starting to get kind of humid in here. And I'm like, it's running, the door seals run. And then when I got up and went outside, I found out why. The humidity, which was not that bad yesterday, had increased wildly over the night. And it was like getting out and putting on a wet jacket, standing outside the van. I'm like, holy crap. The great advantage of a high humid morning is any dead bugs you have on your windshield are nice and soft when they come off. I still got 41 miles to go on this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Uh, you have to chew it before you breathe. I was in Mississippi about 2 months ago. Now I live north of Houston, and it gets hot and sticky, like death warmed over in summer. I was in somewhere in Mississippi, and it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got out of my van, and I was godsmacked at how much you get outside. It was like, how do you live in this? You could feel the air with your hands. I mean, a fish swam over my head in the parking lot. Do you know how much moisture it takes to have a fish swim over your head in broad daylight? It was, how do you people live down here with air conditioning? Forget it, 75 years ago when nobody had air conditioning. How do you live under these conditions? That was weird. But just stand there, oppressive, soaking wet, big, heavy snow jacket that was dipped in a pool. Ugh. In the summertime, this job is hard to do if they start sending it down south. I always request, hey, you got anything going to Wisconsin or Minnesota, Michigan? I like to kind of keep it up here, keep it up north. I grew up in Colorado where it was bone dry, and that to me was normal. And we would have friends from humid climates come visit. Your kids, you go out and run around. And I remember kids my age, 10, 12 years old, we'd go outside and play. You run around, jump up and down, and all of a sudden their nose would start bleeding because their sinuses were not used to that. It would dry out and crack, and their nose would bleed. Swamp coolers. We had one when I was a kid. I am familiar with what a swamp cooler looks like. I have heard of them, but I don't know what they do. I don't understand how a swamp cooler works. It's West Virginia. All right, we're back to drifting, by the way. I'm out of gear. 21.1 miles per gallon. And we're in neutral right now. Talking about the Germans building their cars really precise. The early World War II belt-fed machine gun the Germans had was called an MG-34, and it was replaced by the MG-42. Later on, that's their famous weapon of World War II. It fired really quick, and the difference between them is the MG-42 was sloppier. The parts had a wider tolerances because the MG-34 was so precise and so well made that it would get dirty and it would jam. So you have to make it sloppy so the oils and lubricants and the dirts can evaporates water through fabric mesh to drop off some of the. Okay, so it's more. It's like an air filter more or less. Does it give you cold air? I mean, is it like making the air cold and blowing it by with a fan, or is it just separating the water? Because I remember the ones that I had seen, the swamp coolers, is you could go out there and there was like a constant, okay, it was constantly peeing water. It was just dripping out constantly. So you could technically, so there's not a whole lot of moving parts with a swamp cooler. It's like poor man's air conditioning. But I remember that because when I was a kid, you walk over and you put your hand under it and it was just drizzling water out of the corner onto the ground. They still sell swamp coolers, or is that something you just build? And they don't have them. I've never seen one since I was 10 or less. Interesting idea, though. Come on, dude. If I'm passing you, you're going way too slow. Forced fan, but doors stick, dude. You got expansion. Yeah, I believe it. There was a story, so I got a minute here to tell. I told this, I think I made a video about this a long time ago because I think my grandparents' house in Chicago, south side of Chicago, I think they had a swamp cooler. It's like a window on the side of the house, and there was like an awning over it that went all the way down, and there was a Tractor Supply apples. Okay, yeah, it was underneath a cover, so you couldn't really see it. And in hindsight, I think that may have been a swamp cooler. But I've told this before, but a story about my grandfather. Uh, Again, south side of Chicago, get a load of this, from 1936 until 1974, he was the guy that got to pick the toy in a Cracker Jack box. Now, back in the day, Cracker Jack was like the only candy there was. And back in the day, when you open the box, you get a toy out. It was something you could hold in your hand. Today, it's a sticker. Back then, it was like a tank or a little airplane or a trinket of some type. Those trinkets that are still around from back then are extremely valuable today. People collect them. But he was the guy that got to choose what it was. His job was to go find it. Well, the laws and the rules of business have changed wildly over the decades. And bribery was a name of the game back then. So if you're a sales guy and you're trying to convince the Cracker Jack guy to buy 20 million of your little trinkets, you're going to get real, you're fixing the wreck. No, I'm not driving in a straight line here. You can imagine the kind of bribe was offered to somebody. And I heard bits and pieces of this from my grandfather. I heard bits and pieces from my dad. And over the years, my grandfather's gone. I'm not in communication with my father anymore. But I kind of pieced together what happened. And in the 1950s, my dad would tell me that somebody would come knock on the door, and they would hand you an envelope and a set of keys, and there's a brand new 53 Mercury parked in front of the house. Just out of nowhere, somebody would decide to give you a brand new car. See, hooks up to the guard post, it's floating out like toilet tank. Sugar. Okay, yeah, that sounds cool. All right. My grandfather spoke of a sales representative. He said he wanted to go duck hunting, and the guy suddenly has. My grandfather had a double barrel Browning shotgun that was engraved with gold and all kinds of stuff. And my dad talked about going on vacations. They would have an all expense paid vacation to Miami or Myrtle Beach or somewhere like that because it's the East Coast. And he also said that their house, they wanted to expand the house, and all of a sudden a work crew shows up and goes out in their backyard and adds on an extra room and stuff like that. And that went on until 1974 when he basically got pushed out by nepotism. I think one of the honchos knew what my grandfather had been getting away with for decades, and he brought in a family member and just pushed my grandfather out. But for 40, 50, we're 30, 40, 50, 35-ish years, he was the guy that got to do that. Yeah, so I'm saying he had, coming up on the right up here, we got bicyclists. Check this out. They're riding in a line. Keep looking. A little twist here. That's a draft line that you run right here. Oh, you guys are cheating. You got the electric bikes. Wait a minute. Okay, what you just saw was somebody leading the pack, and the two people bringing up the rear were Amish. The two on the backside were Amish with the head things on. That's kind of cool. I've talked about this on here before, but my very small social circle, one of the places is a shop that rebuilds classic cars and builds show cars. It's called American Muscle in Montgomery, Texas. And the owner, his name is Eric. We'll call him Uncle Eric. Uncle Eric has been doing this since rocks were soft, as my wife would say. And one of the cars in the shop that is a hand-me-down from Uncle Ronaldo is a 1955 Chevy 210, that turquoise color, all original. It's got 28,000 miles on it. He also has a 1960 Volkswagen Bug that's his, along with that. So he's got quite the collection of cars, and the kind of work he does on cars is mind-bogglingly beautiful with show car paint. We're talking about stuff that stops traffic, and he builds them for a living. And we go to auto shows, and he would clean house with the trophies and everything. And I don't know what the audio or the video's doing. It's still beautiful out here. It hasn't cut out on me, but I don't know, and I apologize if it's bad video. But I love this road. This is Highway 50 in West Virginia, and it's absolutely gorgeous out here. And we're coasting again. Hunter's Fork Road. Yeah, hey Raymond, is it like I said? It's a beautiful highway. This would be a nice ride on a motorcycle. And one of the stories I had told the other day about the cars is they have one of their customers that comes in there. He's got a collection of classics. The guy's got more money than he knows what to do with. And his wife, audio, video, 5x5. The guy's got more money than sense. And he's just looking for things to spend it on. It seems that his wife owned a 95 Ford pickup in high school. And she wanted nostalgia. So he bought it. 95 Ford pickup is not something you'd restore. 5-step side, and he gave the cab and the bed color, but he said paint job works is you prime it, and then you wet sand the primer. And if you're wet sanding it, and you look down, you kind of bend down and look at the primer, it'll look like a golf ball, little divots. You keep sanding it. Oops, I spoke too soon. Sorry. We're still moving. I don't know what's going to happen here. We're still moving. And you keep sanding it till the divots go away. Now it's 100% smooth. Then you paint it with this beautiful paint, and then they wet sand the paint. And then they polish the paint job. And the paint, when you're done, it looks like it's 3 feet deep. It's absolutely mind-boggling, absolutely gorgeous. So he takes this 95 Ford pickup body, puts it together, and then he gives it back to the guy, and he had somebody else put it together. And he said the look you would get at traffic lights, driving this totally nondescript truck with this knock you flat on your rear end paint job. He said people would glance over and look away and glance back and look, and then elbow the person sitting next to him and point, going, "Are you seeing this? Wow, Ford puts out a really nice paint job." No, they don't. But he said it's just funny to have something that's, something's not right. I got a motorcycle coming up on me. It looks like a Harley, and I think he's towing a trailer. Let's see what this guy looks like. Coming up on me slow. This is the place to ride a bike. This is beautiful scenery here. My dad used to paint cars, 16 Charger, black and white. Down center. Yeah, oh yeah. Look at it right here. See, they figured it out. Got the white stainless steel trailer. Notice how the motorcycle's leaned over and the trailer isn't. They make a little gimbal for that. Yeah, he's done some fancy paint jobs. This one guy had a '57 Chevy, and the engine under the hood was a 502, and it had 1,040 horsepower. The back end was tubbed out. It had wastegates, and the paint. His wife got to pick the paint. It was purple, and it was the paint. A gallon of paint was $2,000. The body work and the paint combined was 38 grand to make this car look the way it did. Yeah, and that car, if you stomped on the gas pedal, the rotation of the earth would hesitate. And then you open the wastegates. You want to talk about loud? Jeez. Then it had a white leather interior. You couldn't get in the car. It was so perfect. I mean, the problem with show cars is as long as it's a show car, you don't get to enjoy it. You only get to look at it. A show car, you flip it upside down, you can eat off the bottom of it. But once you retire it from the show circuit, then you get to drive it and enjoy it. That car was crazy. We had one called the Princess. It was a '55 Chevy Bel Air convertible. It was peach and white. A white size peach color with a white roof. Showstopper, absolute showstopper. And you would deliver that places in a trailer. And we were at the shop one day. You don't put a lot of gas in a show car. They want you to blow a quarter tank. And he says, take the Princess to the gas station, put fuel in it, and come back. And it's 9/10 of a mile down a country road. Cross one intersection, there's a gas station. And the paranoia factor driving a $250,000 show car was there. And I drove it gingerly down the road, and you pull up to a traffic light driving a car that will stop traffic. And everybody's staring at it because it's just so blah. Cruise into the gas station, and the gas cap is behind one of the tail lights on the car. You pop the hood, and the entire engine is chromed. The spark plug wires are gone. They don't even exist. All the components are chromed. And the inside of the engine bay is painted the outside of the car. So you pull into the shop and open the hood because everybody is going to ask what it looks like. And, went in, paid for it, put in, like five. Got to play 20 to buy it. Oh yeah, it's just for sale. And I don't think most people know what they're looking at a show car. And a show car has been stripped to the frame. In this particular car's case, it had a new frame put under it. It's custom made. There's a company in Illinois that computer cut a frame, and you start from the very bottom and you build the car up and upgrade it, make pro touring so the air goes to pneumatic and coil over suspension and new electronics. You're talking show cars start at $100,000 and go from there. And people just assume it's an old car with a nice paint job and it's worth $20,000. It's like, that's not how that works. I don't know what my audio's doing. We're kind of going down into a valley right now. But people get offended when you tell them what the car costs, what they're worth. And then when you work in a shop like that long enough, you start getting an eye for it. You look around, and most people driving classic cars is basically a hammered piece of junk that's been bent back into shape and painted really nice, unless it's been professionally done. And that's, you start to have an eye for it after a while. Yeah, this is beautiful through here. The fact that nobody lives out here and there's like no roads or anything, I find fascinating. Oh, there it is. Now, this van's not that big. I don't understand how I lose stuff in it. I just did. Uh, so I pick up the wife at the airport on Friday, Pittsburgh. That's going to be fun hanging out with her. We're one of those weirdo married couples that actually like to hang out together. Yeah, I know. Weird, isn't it? Ooh. 10:40. And now I'm fighting the battle of what time zone am I in? Because these time zones jump around here. We have anybody on here from overseas, by the way? Kind of curious. My grandfather, on my father's side, back in the 80s, had a friend of his who got stung by a bee and it killed him. Guess he had a fatal bee allergy he didn't know about. It killed him. He had somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 firearms in his basement. He was a collector. 5 of those firearms were locked up. Those weapons were given to my grandfather, and the only one I ever saw of the 5, which I was like 16 or 17 years old, was a bolt action 222 that could be broken in half somehow. You can twist it in half. And it was built by the Skoda Works in Czechoslovakia during World War II. And I don't know whatever happened to all those firearms. The ones that guy had or the ones my grandfather had. I'm kind of curious what happened to them. But I had imagined a weapon from the Skoda Works, which was a big thing back then, would be very valuable today. And my grandfather on the other side, I told you he worked for Cracker Jack. He also worked for a defense plant in Chicago. I don't know exactly what he did, but he was in the defense industry while doing that second job. So he did his part of the war. He wasn't in the military per se, but he was doing war work, which is I think his job made him quote unquote essential. So that's why they didn't draft him right into the military. I had a point to this, can't remember what it was. Oh, he had when I was a kid, again, he had 2 firearms. I don't know how he got his hands on them. One was a 25 caliber German-made, little tiny 25 caliber off the little itty little handgun that some high-ranking German officer would carry. He never had any intention of using it. It was just like a defensive thing. And then he had this other weapon that made the 25 caliber look smaller. It was like half the size. and it was called an 11. It was half of a 22 bullet, and it was teeny tiny, and it had a little tiny magazine. It was really interesting, and I didn't find out until later in life that that was an assassination gun. Somebody found out that you could line somebody up. That was the smallest size bullet you could walk up and basically put at the base of their skull and go bang and execute. And I have never seen one of those since, and I have never seen a reference to them since. And how he got his meat hooks on that is a mystery. I don't know how he traded or bartered or what. How did he end up with this little? I don't know what happened to those things. My grandfather, both of my grandparents died in '86 on that side, so I have no idea what happened. And I was 18 years old then, so that's long gone. I was curious about that. Ooh. 17 miles to the next turn. And let's see what's coming up here. The next town we'll be going through is Parkerburg. We're on the 50 west, and it's gonna cross over Interstate 77. If that means it, anybody who knows this area, right? But I'm still enjoying the scenery here. You know those little $1 and $2 tire pressure gauges you buy at the checkout counter? I had to go into Pilot yesterday to buy a real one, the stainless steel ones, way more precise to check my tires, and I really appreciate the quality of a properly made tire pressure gauge. I need to check everything, and it turns out I thought I had a slow in on my tires. It turns out I don't, because when I changed the struts, I rotated the tires and I had to adjust the pressure, and I think I was an awful little because of a throwaway tire pressure gauge. So I added air, and I think psychologically I felt like the van was still pulling to the right a little bit. Turns out it was good to go. Made me feel a little better. Wake up. Yeah, Friday I had like 3 hours of sleep. I couldn't go back to bed that day when I dropped off, and then last night I slept on corpse to make up for it. So that was good. And I was talking to my newfound friend Jeff back there at the Pilot. And his van is set up. It's perfect. I mean, he looks like Better Homes and Gardens. He's got his van all organized. Everything's a perfect place. And everything's got its bungee cord to hold it stiff, and everything's rolled up and show off. And my van, I don't want to say it looks like an airstrike hit it, but let's say a grenade or two made its way in here. I mean, everything's where it needs to be. It just doesn't have that pretty appearance. And then he was asking about my fold-up bunk, and I showed him how it works. So it's folded up right now, and I was getting ready to put it back down when all of a sudden they called and said, "Oh, by the way, your one pallet turned into two." So I'm kind of glad I left it up. Pretty sure you like to see it again in the fall when the needs to be change colors. I tell you what, before I was YouTubing at all, I was driving through one of these areas because after a while they all blend together, and the trees turn brown, and then there's a rust color, and then kind of a burnt yellow, and then maybe gold mixed in. There's no reds. I don't remember reds, but it is, for that short period of time when all the colors come together, it's really, really shocking. And the only thing I compare it to, and feel free to Google this, Google Colorado aspen trees. And there's some photographs you'll see where the sky is, it's Colorado, bone dry. The sky is as blue as it can get. You'll see pictures with the mountains in the background that are dark gray with white snow. And then down here in the valley, there's these not orange and yellow trees with white trunks with little bits of black stripes on. in front of a river with green grass. The colors will just reach out of the page and slap you in the face. So if you have access to Google, look up Colorado almond trees during the fall time and click on one of the pictures and look at that. That's something that just makes you stop and step back and just take a deep breath. It's so gorgeous, but it only remains that way for a very short period of time during its transition. It's Norman Rockwell couldn't paint something that pretty. It's so gorgeous. Oh, off the side there, I just saw some houses. And there's a couple. All right, we're getting close to civilization here. We got 21.1. Yeah, these rolling hills are kind of eating my mileage a little bit, but I'm getting 21.1, so it's not bad. You see all these roads and road signs, and you quickly forget where you've been. But I start recognizing the billboards. If there's a very specific billboard or one of a kind, you notice it, and then a month later you see that billboard again. You remember the billboard. Don't remember the area. Remember the billboard. It's like I don't remember any of these. I don't think I've ever been on this road before. So Raymond, are you googling that real quick? I'm curious if you see the picture. It doesn't even look real. It looks something like it's been photoshopped, but it's not. It's interesting what your brain can get used to. When a million years ago, I was on the deck of an aircraft carrier and got to watch them launch and jets and recover, and it's like, wow, the people that do that for a living don't even notice it. It's just, yeah, whatever. I was a helicopter pilot forever, and people are like, wow, that must be great. I'm like, yeah, living by train tracks to me is fascinating. My cousin lives, they have three of them across the street. He doesn't even notice it. Your brain literally blacks it out. You won't notice it. I have an uncle in Denver and cousins in Golden, Colorado. I've seen, okay, I'm actually from Fort Collins. That's where I grew up, in the north part of the state. All right, you're not going to pull in front of me, are you? Don't do it. I will sick my mother on you. Facts. You are so lucky. Yeah, I'm from the northern part of the state. I left there in '86 when I went off to play Army, and I came back in '91, '92 to Fort Carson. And other than that, I've passed through there a few times. But I went to Fort Collins in 2021, and I literally could not find my way around town because the town had been reimagined 2 blocks from the tracks. How long have you lived there for a while? Because when I would go to the family farm and the trains would go by as a kid, well, first of all, they scared the crap out of me. But when I say kid, 17, no, as a little kid, they actually scared me. And then, at some point, I had to ask, how can you live here? How can you have trains going by and not drive you absolutely insane? And then when I was 17 years old, I spent an entire summer living at my grandparents' house and doing the farm thing. The trains are going by, the trains are going by. And then we were sitting down one night watching TV, and I didn't hear a train the entire time. And then I, kind of noticed a train went by, and I'm like, I haven't heard a train for an hour. And your brain psychologically blocks the sound. And then for the next 3 days, I didn't hear a train. And then I stop and turn, and there's 3 tracks. Trains are going by, but it's like your brain just turns it off. It puts it in a little box and it hides it somewhere. And you don't even notice it. And I was like, wow, you really can turn off things that you don't need. And I thought that was interesting. But my wife loves the sound of trains. We have some, they're not very close to where I live, but when the window's cracked open, you can hear them in the distance. You can hear the horn. And if my wife is doing anything she'll stop and go shh, and she'll listen. She'll right in the middle of whatever it says. It's loud. I grew up here. The road's bouncing. It's making this hard to read. They used to wake me up. I was in bed. I didn't bother. Okay, wow, that is the trains. Yeah, by the farm, which you'll see here in a few days. They're not stopping. They're just blowing by. And we're going someplace. And I remember as a kid, the car carriers. You know, it's a. If you look at them today, they're tall rail cars and they're rounded at the top. They look kind of like stainless steel. I don't think it is, and it's got a bunch of little holes in it. And the sides have that stainless steel plating with holes. Those are car carriers. When I was a kid, the car carriers were not covered. We would actually see the cars go by, and what I'm thinking happened is people kept breaking into the trains and stealing stuff or damaging, and they covered them up. But back in the 70s, you could watch the cars go by, and it used to crack me up because the train has a certain kind of roll to it, a motion to it, but the cars would be bouncing. The actual car or vehicle riding on the train car would be moving independently of the train. And I remember looking at that, watching it, bounce, 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 bounce. As a kid, that just cracked me up, the motion of it. But now they've covered them up, so you have no idea what's going by. And 6.8 miles to the turn. No rest areas. Sheets. This GPS is telling me there's a Sheets coming up, gas station. There's a 3rd Street deli, and there's no rest areas. Wow, that's interesting. My GPS is very helpful. Huh. This is the town of Parkersburg, apparently on our right door here. Can't really see it. Tell you what, there's an exit ramp here. So I'm looking through the trees, and there's something interesting over here. Is there an exit? Oh, nope. Yeah. Yes. Never too forecasting. Two, 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 two. We are, if anybody's jumping in here, we are on a drive from Morgantown, West Virginia to McConnell, Ohio. We are passing through the town of Pitt. Yeah, the town behind us. The next town is Blenheim Hass. Blenner Hassett. Boy, that's a freaking mouthful. Blenner Hassett. You got too many Germans living around here. Blenner Hassett. We're following a river. I'm on Highway 50, getting ready to get off onto Highway 68. Or US 50, not interstate, but US 50. Nice, bro. I'm from Morgantown. All right, yeah, I spent the last day and a half in Morgantown at the Pilot. And I like the area. And something about Morgantown that kind of cracked me up is while I was sitting there in the shade in my little umbrella chair, people would pull into the gas station driving off-road vehicles, dune buggy-looking things. And it didn't happen once. I mean, it happened a half a dozen times. They just drive in, get gas, and drive off and go somewhere. And I'm like, kind of like no one gets excited about anything like that. You probably know this, but Don Knotts is from West Virginia. That's where he was born and raised. And because I do a little research on the area when I'm someplace new. That kind of cracked me up. Great actor, by the way. But we're doing a drive over here for a pickup. Supposedly, it's absolutely gorgeous out here. We're doing got to move over. It's supposed to be a 5 o'clock pickup, but I'll be in there before 5, and 95% of the time it's ready for pickup. I actually live on Don. Oh, no kidding. They named a street after him. That's kind of cool. Talking about naming a street after him. Remember the series MASH? You had Radar, who always talked about being from Ottumwa, Iowa. During my travels, I was cutting through Ottumwa, Iowa, and I pulled into the town, and I drove around the downtown area in the Civic Center. You would think there would be a monument on the street corner or something, something that would draw tourists in, or a plaque on the wall. They got nothing. There's nothing. I even researched it online. They got nothing. I was like, you guys are missing out on an opportunity to drag tourism into your town just to spend some tax dollars. Like the Pilot View was most likely it was 10 minutes away from. Yeah, there's one. There's only one in town. I was there sitting in the car park area under a tree on a umbrella chair for the last day and a half. They called me last night and said, "You will drive." What? You will drive. And I'm picking up. They got me picking up what was one pallet that magically morphed into two, which is all I could carry, and it's 2,800 pounds, which is within 200 pounds of my capacity. And I am going to be delivering at 3 o'clock in the morning in, don't tell me, no, don't tell me, Marysville, Michigan, which is directly north of Detroit, almost into the water. Down. Thank you. I wish I would have known that. I would have gone and taken pictures of that. Why weren't you on here yesterday? Yeah, I would have gone and taken pictures of that. And I was talking on here earlier, I actually sat next to Don Knotts on an airplane. I was like 13 years old. I didn't notice it was him. He had a hat on, and he spoke. And when they said, "What do you want to drink?" When he opened his mouth, it's Don Knotts, because you can't hide that voice. Yeah, I wish that when I was down there, because that's the kind of weird stuff that people like to see. Yeah. Oh well. Freeway is. Does it now? Okay, we got a bridge coming up. One of these old style suspension bridges. I really, really, really got to stop the van up here for a minute, because I have my air conditioner sitting on the seat next to me. It has a bungee cord on the top, and I put a seatbelt on it, and I forgot to put the seatbelt on it this morning. And it's moving around, and I'm having to hold it going down the road here. I really need to stop something like this. This bridge coming up, I don't know what it is, but look at the style of it. They don't have this stuff in Texas. They don't make this design, and I really appreciate the architecture. So we'll be in that lane, that lane, that lane. Move it over. But I appreciate this kind of a structure. I think it looks really nice. I watched a whole documentary about these guys in New York City who paint bridges. And your full-time career is painting a bridge. It's like that, but it's real complicated. And it takes 8 or 9 months to paint the bridge from one end to the other. And at the end of the 9 months, they have a barbecue, and then they start over again because of rust and corrosion and whatnot. Where are you originally? Well, I was born in California, but I was raised in northern Colorado. And I currently live north of Houston. I've been there for 25 years. Holy crap. 25 years lived north of Houston. But I claim Colorado as home. Don't have a lot of East Coast experience. Most of my travels and knowledge are in the western half of the United States. But once I started expediting, the core area for expediting is the Northeast. That's where all the manufacturing goes on. Making a turn. Hold on a second. If I can get a place to pull off, I'm going to pull off, because I am currently muscling my air conditioner with my right hand. It's got wheel on it. Around the corner. Yeah, I'm going to need a place to pull off. Oh, it's got me pulling off right here anyway. Oh, 390. Oh, I'm getting off here anyway. We were from Oklahoma. Most of them are in bad shape. Yeah, most of the infrastructure in the state. Oklahoma. I watched a comedian doing a routine about Oklahoma. Oh, okay, here we go. Wait, oh, damn it, it's a drop off. Oh, is that parking? No, I can't get to that parking lot, and I got somebody tailgating me. There was a comedian talking about that. He said, "Have you ever seen an Oklahoma license plate? It says Oklahoma is okay." And he goes, "What did that lose out to?" Hmm, we're having a contest. We're going to name our license plate. Oklahoma is okay. Oklahoma, trees are made of wood. Oklahoma, Oklahoma, there, I said it twice. And Oklahoma, the circus comes every spring. Okay, put in your votes. Major repairs. Yep. Whoa, stay in your lane. Okay, there is got. I got cars behind me right now. Okay, I might lose my feed going down whatever the freaking road this is, but I got to do 20 miles. But I got to pull off if I can find a parking lot. I got to jump off and fix this air conditioner. Yeah, it's kind of fun to look at. That gas station or something pops up. Can't pull off here because it's a ditch, and if I get off of the ditch, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to get kissed by this thing. If you're ever driving on a major road and you see an old car, don't pull in and ask about it because everybody and their brother has, and the guy's either, quote, restoring it or wants too much money for it. But if you're on some dirt road in the middle of nowhere where no human has ever stepped and you happen to see a classic old look of a car you might be interested in buying, you can ask that guy. And sometimes going on these back roads, you see stuff like that. And I made a video about that a couple of days ago. A woman had an entire yard full of 1950s hulks of cars. All right, show me a gas station. Show me something. A bumper sticker that says, "Get off my ass before I flip a booger on your windshield." Yeah. I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said, "Watch out for the idiot behind me." Got a kick out of that one. This should be it's a nice area. Rolling hills, there's big houses, not like mansion, elaborate, but a nice house, big yards, maybe an acre and a half each. Design out of the mid 80s, maybe. Could you tell us a story, please? That's all I do on here. When I was a kid, I would, go to old people to hear about history and hear about war stories about life. And I am quickly turning into the old guy. They say the difference between a fairy tale and a war story is a fairy tale starts with once upon a time. A, a war story starts with, "You motherfuckers ain't gonna believe this, but," something like that. Don't laugh, your daughter is in here. Yeah, I'm still got these people getting it. Okay, hopefully there's something coming around this corner. We're going through a little tiny settlement called Vincent. Gotta get my attention with your war story. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, air conditioner. Stay with me. Stay with me. Sorry, guys. Whoa. Here we go. Here we go. Handing out of this thing for dear life. Okay, bear with me. I gotta jump out and strap this down. Always use your parking brake. Yeah. That's not the sound of old age. That was the van making that. Yeah, put you out. Right. You come over here. Get back on there. Get back on there. 2, 2, go. What, did you get fatter overnight or something? There we go. Ah, when I got out, I forgot to take the stick with me. You know the stick you beat the women back with? Stop at McDonald's, I won't get robbed. You know, like women see a guy in a van, they pretty much can't control themselves. And it's my story and I'm telling it, so shut up. One of those things I abruptly stop for are cats. If I see not cat, I feed cats. I feed cats at the rest areas and truck stops. But if I see a turtle on the road or a turtle trying to get in the road, I will stop. I will flip on my flashers and stop in the middle of the road to save a turtle. I'm sorry, that's my policy. Me and turtle go way back. Ah, there. Now the air conditioner is dancing around. Much better. Grain silos. There was a little town in Colorado a friend of mine lived in, and it had a set of train tracks cut through the middle of it, and that was where the stop sign was. And that stop sign was the total amount of traffic device control devices in the entire town. And the joke was, it said welcome. You know, the sign on the outskirts of town says welcome to the town of. Well, we said it said that on both sides of the sign since the town was so small. Couldn't believe how many dead turtles there were between the track. Oh, I tell you what happens is the turtles climb over the track and then they get stuck because they don't have the leverage to get out. And that happens near where I live. There's a road where they'll come out of the bushes and drop off the curb and they can't get up the curb on the other side. And I ride my badass scooter and I'll stop and scoop it up. And then I'll go park. And they've probably been there a while, you know, from the heat. And I will march through the woods to get to the little pond that's in there. However far, it's, you know, 50, 60 yards of hiking. And I'll go put him on the edge of the water to make sure, he's got the strength to get there. But I will stop and pick up turtles. And I've filmed, there's some in my playlist. I've filmed it. But over the last couple of years, I've probably pulled a dozen turtles. Some of them the size of you put them in your palm, and some of them were freaking huge. I mean, like stupid big turtles, but everything in between. But I always move turtles. I've actually jumped out of my car to grab a turtle and met somebody else that jumped out of their car to grab the turtle. You know, because other people think the same way. Because great minds think alike. If you see a turtle crossing the road, right to left or left to right, do not take them back from the side they came from, because they're going to turn, whatever instinct is drawing them. They're just going to go back and try it again. So continue in the direction they're going. Don't try to back them up, because it's not going to have a good ending. You're just delaying the inevitable. Oh, jeez. I thought that guy was going to pull out in front of me. Oof. What is today? It's Sunday. It's Sunday. That's why everybody's out. Uh, I'll give you a quick war story. So somebody asked for a war story. In 1980, no, 2020 or 21, the wife and I were, it was in 20, it was before COVID. I used to fly at the Grand Canyon. I was flying helicopter tours, and my wife worked in the office. So we would travel out to Nevada for like 2 weeks and live in a company rental house. And we go up there, we go to the local airport, fly the 25 minutes to the Grand Canyon, work all day, and then fly home. So that was our bus to work was A-Star 350. Fly helicopter to work every day, back and forth. And I would be strapped in the cockpit for hours at a time. So when it was time to drive home from the airport, my wife drives. It's her car. I'm not one of those. I'm a guy. I got to be behind the steering wheel. My wife and I switch off. I don't play that game. And we're driving from the Boulder City Airport to Henderson, which is the town immediately south of Las Vegas, where the opening scenes of the Cannonball Run were filmed, in case anybody's wondering. Sunday drivers, look at me. I'm roadkill. Yeah, that was a joke my friend said. Everybody's driving around out here singing opera music. And I went, what? You know, me, 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 me. They don't pay attention to anybody else, and they're getting in your way. But anyway, my wife's driving back, and we got off the highway close to the place. And it's during rush hour, and there's usually a wall of cars, and for some reason, there was nobody there. We go through a traffic light, and had we stayed on the highway, because they just opened this new lane where you're going up the highway and you swerve off the road at a 45-degree angle, you pass under a bridge, and you merge at a 45-degree angle onto the feeder road. So people are usually going pretty fast, and it's like swerve right, swerve left under the bridge, and look over your right shoulder because you're merging into traffic, and the sun's setting on the left side. So on your left side is in the shadow, on your right side is in the daylight. And again, it's rush hour traffic, and no cars are there. And I'm looking up the road, and I wear glasses for reading purposes, but as far as looking in the distance, the last time I had my eyes checked, I had 2010, 2013, which means in the distance, I can see things. And apparently, I don't have anything to compare this to. Apparently, my vision is somewhat magnified beyond normal. And I can read signs in the distance that most people can't read, and I can see things apparently most people can't see. But I saw some movement on the road in the shadow. Something caught my attention in the darkness, and I said, I think there's something or someone in the road. And there was a kid who might have been 2 years old on what's called a balance bike, and he was moving around in the shadow. And it dawned on me, if somebody comes out of that tunnel and is looking over their right shoulder while turning left, that kid is toast. Because you can't see him and you're not even looking that way. And he's riding his bike in the road on the shoulder, kind of on the lane. And I'm in the passenger seat side of the car. And when you're flying with a crew, you don't start flipping levers if you're not the pilot in command. Because the pilot's doing something, and if the co-pilot reaches over and flips a switch, and the pilot doesn't know the co-pilot flipped the switch, it may cause a problem. So my training is not to start pushing buttons and pulling levers as a co-pilot. My training went to telling the wife what to do because I can't do it for myself. That's just what happened. And I literally said, hit the flashers, hit the flashers, hit the flashers really fast. And she did. And I said, I'm kind of barking a little bit. I said, block the lane. And she got past the merge lane, which was a miracle because there should have been a wall of cars. And I said, hit the flashers. And I went to bail out of the car, and someone came out of the tunnel hauling ass. And the woman was in a green truck, and she was looking at me with fire in her eyes that we were stopped in the road. And I stood up, I made eye contact with her, and I held my palm at her, and I said, whoa! I said, hey, stop. And then she saw the little kid and was like shocked. And then a wall of cars appeared behind us. It was just this magical gap. And I picked this little kid up, and I said, hey, I walked up to him, and I didn't want to scare him. I held my arms out, and I said, hey, little dude, you can't play out here. It makes people nervous. And I picked him up, and I said, do you live over here? And he didn't talk to me. He nodded his head. And my wife got out, and we talked to him calmly. He wasn't really upset, but he was kind of concerned. He never spoke a word. And I walked over to the neighborhood to a gate that didn't lock. And I walked up to the first house. I knocked on the door, and I waited. The door opened, and it was a black guy. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this little blonde-haired kid isn't his. And I said, do you happen to know who this little dude belongs to? He was over here on the road. And he's like, oh, holy crap. And he goes, no, around the corner is where all the little kids hang out. So we walked out. And apparently during this time, the the woman realized her child had been gone for God knows how long, and she went running out towards the road, and she ran past us. I didn't see her because the guy's porch is recessed. And my wife saw her running, and my wife said, my husband has it, he's back there. And so I walk off this guy's driveway, and this woman walks up, and she's running towards me, and I hand her a kid. I said, he was on the other side of the road. And she goes, oh, no, he wasn't. I went, yeah, he was. And then she walked off. I never saw her again. I didn't think anything of it. We went back to the rental house. We were there for a half an hour going, what just happened? I said, oh, we have a dash camera. So I went and pulled the disc out of the dash camera, and I put it on the computer, and there, it recorded the event. And I sent a copy of it to my friend back in Texas. I said, dude, look what just happened. And he's like, dude, that's crazy. So the next day we get up and we go to work, and we're up at the Grand Canyon, and we're doing our flights, and we had some openings in time. So I was shut down, and my phone rings. I got a phone call from Fox 5 News in Las Vegas. And I go, hello? He goes, hey, are you the guy in that video? Maybe. And they go, yeah, we just got this. We'd like to interview you. I wasn't doing YouTube. I wasn't. You're an engine failure. I'll get to that in a second. And I said, and I told them what happened. They said, well, we want to interview you and your wife. And I don't want to go on camera. I'm not vainglorious. Everybody look at me. So I told them what happened, and I gave permission to use it. And they put it on local news, and then it went nationwide. So if you're playing on YouTube right now, I want you to go in the search window and put in toddler on the Boulder Highway. And it'll be the first thing that pops up. And on Fox 5s, it has 8.7 million hits. And to answer your question, I'm the guy in the white shirt with a yellow hat. That's my trademark flying safety color. I always wore a yellow hat with an Army symbol on it. But I'm the guy in the white shirt with the shoulder boards and the yellow hat. And that went out. And that's my first video, inadvertently, from 2020. Let's see. Trying to watch the road and drive here. Did you ever have an engine failure or have an auto? Yeah, you could say that. You want the war stories of flying, all right? My wife's birthday, August 1st. August 1st, 2002. I was flying in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, depending. And I was flying a 1970s Long Ranger L1, and there's two engines you can put in the L1, the C20 or the C30. The preferred engine is the C30. The POS you don't want to fly is the C20. Well, this old aircraft had a C20. It had recently been overhauled, and the most dangerous time on a new engine is the first 100 hours on a turbine engine. And I had my regular guys on board, three of my regulars, and we lived 100 miles out, and we would work our way towards the beach, hit platform, and then I would fly in to get gas and grab my guys on the last platform about 20 miles off, and we do the 100-mile trip back to deep water. We spend the night. So I land, I'm spinning on this little deck, and my guys come up and get in, and we roll up, and we take off. And the thing about a C20 engine is they're old, and they run really hot. And on a turbine engine, you have what's called a bleed band, because the engine runs at 100% power at all times, and you're just taking power and adding power. And if your engine is producing more power than you need, that bleed band, it's like a rubber band. It releases pressure, it releases air to reduce the power. And these old C20 crap motors would run so hot, they actually removed the bleed band and sealed the holes up. And one of the side issues of that you had to take into account is the aircraft couldn't adjust for pressure at altitude, so you couldn't fly it over 3,000 feet. And one of the characteristics of not having a bleed band on a turbine engine is when you would climb up to altitude, the cruise torque was 80%, you'd climb up, it would show like 77%. And then you'd have to pull up a little more power to set it at 80. You fly at 3,000 feet, for instance. When you would descend and drop an altitude and roll out, all of a sudden you're pulling 82, 83%. So you had to reduce power to stabilize it. That was just a side thing. So I take off. I got there's four of us in the aircraft. Beautiful sunny day, dead calm. Climb, level out. I think it was 1,500 feet. because the temperature drops. It's real hot that day. And it was at 75%, and I pulled the power, and the rotor turbine tank dipped, kind of went down. So the rotor and the turbine share a gauge, and they're both at 100%, and it dipped a little bit. Now, the throttle, these are old manual start turbine engines. Your throttle is your twist throttle. You twist it all the way to the stop, and you run it 100%. And there's a little switch that you can kind of tune it, like trim it a little up and a little down. It says, if you push it with your thumb, it goes up. If you pull it with your thumb, it goes down. It says INC, and on the bottom of DEC, increase, decrease, universally known as the Inker Dinker. So I've got it. The throttle is stopped. The only adjustments I can make is the Inker Dinker. So I push the Inker Dinker and hold it, and I pulled power. And actually, I reduced power, take the load off, and I pulled, and the rotor dipped even more, even though the throttle's wide open and it's inked up all the way. And then I dropped the collective to kind of get into an auto rotation, and I said, I don't think we have an engine, because your rotor stays at 100%. I'm at 85% rotor on the way down. If you drop below 70% rotor, you don't have any lift. And when you shut the engine off and the rotor disengages from the transmission, the aircraft goes into an auto rotation. What happened is the engine died so slowly that the clutch didn't disengage. So I was dragging the motor with the rotor. So I'm auto rotating at 85% power, which is 85% rotor speed, which is not where you want to be. Now, if I crack the throttle off, the sprag clutch might let go of the transmission and give me a rotor, and I can go nice auto rotation. Of course, if it doesn't let go, I just killed everybody. So I left it engaged. We did an 85% rotor auto rotation, flared at the bottom, and when I flared, the aircraft didn't change, it just changed the nose pitch, and I popped the rotor and slammed it down, and the sprag clutch released. The rotor spun up, and I got the aircraft to flare really hard, pulled the trigger, blew the floats. The guys next to me go, "Oh, you're serious about this?" That was their response. Well, we are actually landing in the water. And I pulled the stick back. I got it standing on its tail, and the rotor started to bleed off, and you get it. It's kind of hard to judge water height, but we hit like a sack of concrete, but we didn't have any forward motion, and the aircraft sank about 4 or 5 feet in the water. And I remember looking like you're wearing swim goggles, and then it popped back out of the water again. And in an emergency procedure of doing, well, as long as that tail rotor is turning, as long as your rotor, there's a drive shaft from the engine to the tail, so it's still working. I kept it straight. And right before you hit, this old Army training, you spread your legs, because if the rotor hits something hard and the stick slams around, it could break your legs. So you kind of get up on your toes and spread your legs to get away from it. And we landed hard, and we were sitting there in the water. The emergency procedure ends with the landing. It doesn't tell you what to do next. We're just looking at each other, kind of going, and the engine idles. I'm trying to remember. This is a long time ago. You run the engine 100%. You idle it at 55%. It won't really run below 55%. But the engine was still running when I took my headset off at 42%. And because I was slamming on the rotor brake, and the rotor wouldn't stop turning. And then I heard the motor back there whirling really slow. And I'm like, this isn't even possible. And it actually wrinkled the tail boom. I have a picture of this at home. It wrinkled the tail boom a little bit. And the aircraft, the pontoons have a tendency to deflate. So we get out of the aircraft to get our little life raft. And the Coast Guard came and got us. And we got out. They got the bird back upright and dry. And when they pulled it apart, it turns out the fuel control unit, let's call it the carburetor, the fuel control unit, something was wrong with it. And it was rebuilt by Honeywell, and they got done with their investigation. And when you wreck an aircraft, a helicopter, it's called a sudden stop. That's the phrase they use. And Honeywell had to have our aircraft stripped to the bone and rebuilt at their expense. And our insurance company slapped everybody high five, because we didn't pay for it. The Honeywell insurance had to pay for it. So we got a brand new helicopter out of it. And The aircraft was from the 1970s, and they said the guy was laughing. He said when they stripped it, it had like 23 different paint jobs on it. But yeah, that was my one forced landing, and it was into the water of all places. Yeah, as long as the big fan blade on top is turning, you can fly. As long as you have that made, you can lose your hydraulics, you can lose your tail rotor, you can lose your engine, you can lose anything. As long as the big fan blade is turning, uh, you could you can land it. A lot of people don't realize the difference. If you're in an airplane and you're falling out of the sky, and I don't care engine quits, I don't care how gently you fall out of the sky. When you touch the ground going 100 miles an hour, you better have some place to have the 100 miles an hour to stop. In a helicopter, you could be falling out of the sky, and all you need is a place big enough to put the helicopter. And I can come out of the sky and do S turns and zigzags and land it. Now, as a passenger or non-helicopter knowledgeable person, it's going to be a real exciting landing. Real exciting. For the pilot, it's no big deal. But for the passenger, it's going to be like, woo, when you come whipping in there. But I can put it on the ground. It may not be pretty, but I can put it on the ground. Magic Shine Car Wash. I get a car wash, little whole car wash with a seat. Hopefully, yeah. As a matter of fact, they did trash that motor. I hate those stupid C20. Ugh. Yeah, I went to a car wash a couple days ago, and it's like the pressure was like a garden hose. They didn't have any cleaning agent. The scrub brush on the stick was like 4 inches long. What are you supposed to do with that? So I gotta wash this thing one of these days. I think I'm close to my target actually. Hold on. Wait a minute. Yeah, spoke too soon. Yeah, we're not too far away. So I'm supposed to be there. It says 15 minutes. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that old C-20 engine would be some trash. Anyway, that aircraft got completely overhauled, and we had the company had like 25 helicopters, and we had this one base, and the age of the pilot does not necessarily translate to the experience level of the pilot. And yeah, we had an old guy. I'm the old guy now, but we had an old guy working for us who was in his late 60s. And he thought because he was older than all the young guys in our 30s and 40s that he knew more than we did. And it didn't take long to figure out this guy didn't know jack squat about nothing. Because he flew EMS his whole life. And he was, like I said, he's about 60, and he had a total of like 1,400 hours of flying experience. When I retired last year, I had 16,900. So we weren't in the same category, but he was way older than me. So he thinks he's. They call it. This is not a compliment. You call somebody Peter Pilot, that means they think they're all that bag of chips. Well, he thought he was Peter Pilot, and I found out from my water landing experience that you, as a pilot, your experience and abilities and calmness under fire mean absolutely nothing when everything goes right. It's what you do when everything goes wrong. That is what you're paid for. How do you react when everything goes sideways? That's when you know if you're made of the right stuff. And this guy was flying that aircraft, by the way, that was overhauled. This is years later, and there was a room full of pilots. There's a base that had, I think we had 8 helicopters parked there. We're all standing around outside, and this was in southern Louisiana, where we had a problem with frogs, these little tiny frogs that would get all over your airframe. And you get up in the morning to pre-flight, you'd wipe frogs off the aircraft. And you had to put pillows in your air inlets because they would climb inside your air intakes. And if you suck a frog into your engine, you're going to know it because it's going to pop the engine. And I had one time do it, and you just hear it. It makes a bang because you're sucking it into the compressor. I mean, the frog's the size of your thumbnail. And they go in, and you hear bang, and then the controls bounce, and the tail moves because you're powered. And then you have to turn around and fly back, and they got to pull the aircraft apart, pull the engine out, and look at it, make sure it wasn't damaged, and blah, 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 blah. It's a pain in the butt. I ate one time, scared the crap out of my passengers, but I knew exactly what it was when it went off because they were known to be there. So one day we're all standing around outside, and Peter Pilot is hover taxiing in that aircraft that I had flown, that I had my water landing in. And because I used to fly attack helicopters, combat, you would completely grossly overload the airframe. And the lower you are to the ground, the more power, more lift you have. So I'm kind of trained to fly at a foot, where most people fly at hover taxi at 3 feet. I hover taxi at 1 foot. I'm almost touching the ground. That's how I was trained, and I always did that. It kind of bothered people. But this guy would hover at 10 feet, which takes a lot of power, and it was unnecessary, but that's what he would do. Well, Peter Pilot was hover taxiing at 10 feet, and there's like 10 pilots standing there watching him, and he ate a frog, and it makes a sound. And we all know exactly what, bang, we all were looking at him. Had he let go of the controls, closed his eyes, waved his hands in the air, and screamed like a little girl, he would have been better off than what he did, which was dump the power. I mean, he dumped it like third period French. And that helicopter hit the ground so hard, it spread the skids. And there's a bottle, looks like a giant fire extinguisher on the belly of these aircraft. And it's the pontoon. It's for the pontoons. It's the air bottle that blows the bags. It's underneath. And he hit the ground so hard, it spread the skids and shoved the bottle through the belly of the airframe. And when you crack the airframe, that's the end of the aircraft. You can't recover that. It's not fixable. Bird strikes also scary. Sucks. Change BART. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm trying to watch too many things at once here. Hold on. And he made the turn. Whee! Okay. Turbines suck one in. Oh, birds don't. Well, on a jet maybe, but on a helicopter they angle. Bird can't get in there. I did eat a dragonfly once, so that was exciting. But he's sitting there on the ground, destroyed the airframe. He's still running at 100% throttle. The engine's running, and he shut it down. And he starts telling the stories of what happened. I said, dude, you had like 10 witnesses, not random witnesses. 10 helicopter pilots watching what you did. You just screwed the pooch. Oh no, it's because the engine quit. The engine's at 100%. We're watching it. And he ended up putting his tail between his legs and quitting. That aircraft got trashed, so it's no longer in service at this point. That was the only other helicopter that ever got lost in the company I worked for. I talked about this the other day, actually. Do you remember the movie Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson with the cool mullet? And he's at that guy's cliffside mansion and talking to him, and a helicopter pops up, and some guy with a sniper rifle shoots him full of holes, and he flies off. And then Mel dramatically runs out there and starts firing his handgun at him as the helicopter flies away. Well, if throughout that movie, if you look really close, the tail number, it's not legal, but the tail number is under the pilot's door, and it's November 230 Charlie Alpha. And my company ended up owning that helicopter years later. And we called it Lethal Weapon. That was its name. And that aircraft got destroyed during Katrina by a Black Hawk helicopter that it was flying in circles taking pictures, and a Black Hawk helicopter flew over it. It took his wind, and it did a couple 360s and fell out of the sky and went through somebody's house. And this was during the Katrina, and the water had gone down there. And the joke was, my wife left me, my dog bit me, my house got flooded during the storm, and the helicopter went through my roof. You're having a bad day. And when the helicopter landed on the roof, the rotor blade karate chopped the roof, broke the tip off of the rotor blade. It went through the neighbor's house, hit the dishwasher, and sent the dishwasher out of the kitchen, down the hall, and it exploded against the wall on the other side of the house. I know, because we were all looking at the windows like tourists. Kind of got a laugh out of that. But that aircraft got trashed, and it never got repaired. There was just nothing left in it. But that's the only two aircraft out here in the civilian world I was around that got damaged. And one was mine, but it didn't go on my record. It didn't go as an incident or an accident because it wasn't my fault. So it didn't work against me. As far as bird strikes go, I was flying down the beach from Cameron, Louisiana to Sabine. It's about 30 miles right along the coast. At the end of the day, I was flying into the sun. And I may have been flying at 50 feet being a hot dog, but I was hauling ass down the beach and I hit a seagull with the rotor. And no pun intended, I didn't know you could squeeze that much shit out of a seagull because when that rotor blade hit him, it sounded like a wet mop hitting a cinder block wall. And it exploded and it hit every square inch of my windshield, went schwap. Well, that's kind of impressive. I didn't know you could squeeze that, no pun intended, but I didn't know you could squeeze that much shit out of one seagull. And then another time I took one through the chin bubble on the left side. I had one of my regulars on board and I hear a thump and look down and he's got fish guts all over his legs and there's feathers floating around the cockpit. And I went, oh, I think we hit something. And we had to replace the chin bubble over there. And then the smell, oh God. When an animal that eats fish for a living gets inside your airframe, his insides get inside your airframe. Yeah, that was a bit of a mess. Yeah, but as far as sucking an aircraft, a bird into an engine, that isn't really an issue with helicopters because the engine is actually behind the transmission and the air has to kind of go around it. There's no direct access to just smack one and suck one in. That's not the design. We are getting close, semi-close to our destination. This is the Meigsville Township. Whatever that means. Coming up. Nice area, though. This very much reminds me of the family farm area, except there's not as many houses because everybody owns a piece of property and it's all spread out. Nice house. Yeah, I've had people come in here from Brazil, Ethiopia, South Africa, New Zealand, and they like looking at the terrain. And I get it. This there's a guy on YouTube that has a series of video about travel. He's from Great Britain, and he was talking, and he said something that British people do not understand about the United States. He goes, that is, most Americans do not have a passport, and he says this is something the Brits cannot wrap their head around. Americans go on vacation to America because their country is so big and varied, they don't even have to leave their own borders to go have a new experience. And he says that to a European, that is just a completely foreign concept. Considering you could take the state of Texas and drop it over Western Europe and it would be like a blanket you could tuck under. Oh, nope. All right, we got a couple more turns and we're there. And I don't have my target dialed up. I have the town dialed up. So I don't know. This isn't taking me there, but this is going to take me into town up here. Because I have a couple of turns. Then I got to figure out what I'm doing. So it's custom cabinetry. They don't make 3,000-pound cabinets, so it's not there. I don't even know the name of this company. Too. Anyway, I'm going to pull up here in a few minutes. I'm going to jump out. I got to figure out who I'm bumping into, who I'm talking to, what I'm doing, what size shoes they wear. I'll let them know I'm in the area. I'm literally 5 hours early, depending on the time zone I'm in. Because again, I don't know what time zone this is, but I'm literally 5 hours early, and it's probably not ready. I'm not going to press them. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm around. You kind of do it in friendly, and you don't sit there and say, hurry up, because you don't want to press them. But a lot of times they go, oh, there's your load right there. That's happened a lot of times. A couple more left-hand turns here. Flags, look at that on the railing. Brits don't understand why we cars let them drive and drive through. Yeah, same thing. They're the weirdos that have their driver's seat on the wrong side. The rest of Europe is the other way around. I tell you what, it is so confusing in Great Britain for a foreigner and people who don't drive on that side of the road that when you're on foot on a sidewalk and you go to step off the curb, they paint on the ground, look left for traffic, look right for traffic. Because we're trained to look a certain direction. And I guess enough people walked out looking the opposite way, got run over. They literally took the time to paint the roads to tell people, hey, stupid, look over here. All right. And Morgan County Airport. I love airports. That's a place you can also park at night. You can hide out, is at an airport. You do with this job because there's a vehicle sit there. Nobody will look at it twice because vehicles sit there all the time. People get in their planes and fly off. And little airports, they don't look, they don't care. All right. So down this hill. Oh, across the street is Malta Township. I like Malta in the Mediterranean. Okay, hold on here. What's happening? And hill. Dropping a gear. Going manual. I'm going to ride the transmission down the hill. I don't like to smoke my brakes. Hey, Fred. Hi, back. We're pulling up. We just did a run from Morgantown, Pennsylvania, Collins, Ohio for a pickup supposed to be later today. And I am in the process of pulling into the Collins. And I don't know if this feed's going to stay because we're going down into a valley right here. And these things have a tendency to drop. Wow. This is a steep hill. Still going down. Morgan Township. Uh, No, this feed's actually, I've been told it's gotten blurry a couple times. I apologize for that. But it hasn't actually dropped off this whole trip, which kind of surprises me. All right, we're coming into civilization around this next right turn. And I use the term civilization very loosely. I think we're in Ohio. I didn't see a sign, but we passed into Ohio at some point. McConnellsville, corporate limit. Whoa, making a turn. That's a cute little town. Oh, that's that cute little quiet town. Decor of the 1940s, by and large. I gotta figure out where I can pull off and figure out where I am. That's a nice little clean area. What is the county library? I'm pulling in here, just to get people to get off my tail. Library parking only. Oh yeah. Well, what if I want to come in here? Something I'm noticing is the roofs on these houses. There's an old style tile they haven't made in decades, and there's one right there. Look at that house. Can you see the roof? Looks like it has something growing on it. All right, before I cut this out, I'm going to drive around a teeny bit. 340 grade. Yeah, it didn't say what the grade was, but it was noticeable. Oh, I'm not supposed to go this way. I'm such a rebel. Like, see this house across the way? Look at that design. That's like 1880s. I guess he's turning. Gee, don't smile so much, dude. Seriously. All right, coming around. Take a look. Parking. We'll show you something here. Look at this house. Look at the decor of that. Is that not sharp looking? That's old school. My wife and I like to drive around little towns too. We get a kick out of these places. Okay, I got to go figure out where I'm going since I don't know where I'm going. I don't even know the name of the place. I'll be back on later when I start my run going to back to Michigan. I'll come back on and tell you what's happening. But thanks for tuning in. And like I said, I got to figure out my situation here. So I'll catch up with you guys later. Take care.